All right, all right, all right. Here we go. Got everything. Oh, yeah. All the things are plugged in. We're looking loud enough, baby. If I'm blasting your eardrums out, let me know. You have to let me know if that music's too loud. I don't know. It's hard to tell from here. Levels look good. Look good, baby. How we feeling tonight? Let me see where we have that set up at. All right. Let's, you know what? For this one, I'm going to make that a little bigger. I just am. We're going to make you guys in chat just a wee bit bigger. It's like you got a tiny blue pill of your own. All right. There you go. Welcome to Rangers of Verra. We are going to try to make this semi-regular during at least Alpha 2 Phase 1. I'm shooting for weeknights, 9:30 Central Standard Time. Did a little update on the Twitch panels. It's got a whole new look. Information's pretty much up to date. Got a few other things I want to add there, like the PC build and all that. For those of you that have seen what's going on with this whole thing here, it's pretty cool, man. It's been fun. Just added the mount for the stream lighting. Lighting's not dialed in exactly to where the photographer inside of me wants it to be, and I really think it comes down to the quality of the light, but we'll fix that. That's enough about that, though. Tonight's show is going to be about a random crazy thought that I had today. I am seriously contemplating, believe it or not, this next weekend, this Friday when we play, and we'll get back to this weekend. We need to talk about that in my playtime. I'm thinking about starting a mage alt. Reason for that, yes. Let me see. Let me duplicate this bad boy. I know that we are coming up on a wipe on December 20th, most likely. If not before, it would have to be something, I think, pretty catastrophic from the way that the Pirate Software conversation went for that to happen before. But we're obviously going to come up on a wipe, and that means that going into Phase 2, the whole board's reset, right? It's going to be pretty competitive. I would like to have figured out by then, out of the existing classes, what I would like to play. And it is my intention to play Rogue as soon as they make that available. In Phase 2, we'll see when or if that happens. But before all that, I would definitely like to experience Mage. I thought about Fighter. In the past with WoW, I'd done some way back, it's 1,000 years ago since I played that game. I did some Paladin-like stuff. I mean, I've always been kind of D&D wise into the whole Paladin situation, but I'm not sure. The one that I constantly come back to with things, though, is Mage. I'm loving the Ranger. It's nothing against the Ranger. I just want to experience them both. And I'm going to have to ask somebody, like, if I have a weapon on my Ranger, I guess I'm going to have to give that somebody in the guild if I want to give that to my Mage. I think that's probably the way it's going to work, unless, I don't know. I know we've got some makeshift mailbox or something. I'm not sure how that's going to work, so we'll have to check that out. But yeah, let's do this thing. Let's go check out the Mage, shall we? Let me pull up the classes on the wiki. Let me pop you guys in here with me. Where's the button? There we go. All right, cool. I gotta get all those OBS things off of there. All right, let me switch this bad boy back up to Stream Manager over here. Cool. All right, I'm just going to trust that all looks right. So, we know all this about classes. Let's zoom down here to Z Mage. Okay, so we would be looking at this bad boy right here. So, as much as I hate, and I'm going to be very unpopular opinion here, I absolutely despise jargon. It gets so overused that I think it's exclusive sometimes to somebody that might be checking out the game. But let's just say it's DPS, right? So here we go. And the Summoner does look good. Like, out of everything, Mage, Rogue, Ranger, Summoner, and all the mixes in thereof. All right, so I wanted to look at their skills and abilities. Ooh, what's this Mage timeline? Oh, it's just that. All right. There we go. Let's pull up that skill tree. All right. I was looking at some stuff on YouTube. All right, cool. What are we doing, Pockets? I am considering. You're well, welcome. Number one, Pockets. I'm considering doing a mage alt this weekend. As you know, we're going to do the wipe on the 20th. I kind of want to explore options that I might be curious about before that. I am not like hellbound on leveling, even though, I mean, obviously it's a goal. I want to make sure come the 20th, I know which classes I want to put my effort into. Whenever we get around to getting the rogue, obviously I'll explore that. But for right now, what we have, I've been playing Ranger. I am at 8.61 on Ranger, something like that. You got to claim your decimals in this game. The experience is so rough. But I think I want to explore the mage. Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I will have more limited time this weekend because of school stuff coming up next week. I have, what do I have? I have physics exams in 2 areas, differential equations, and linear algebra tests, which are all just going to be super fun. So I have to restrain myself from the Ashes mania. So yeah, that's what we're doing here to answer your very short question in the longest way possible. We're exploring the mage, and I want to look at the abilities, and I actually need to go do the same thing. I need to take a closer look on the Ranger too, just to see kind of where I'm heading with that. I forget, are you playing Cleric or no? I forget what you're playing, Pockets. All right, so I've heard this elemental empowerment. Okay. And you got this guy over here, Arcane Volley. Started tank, main cleric now. Oh, look at that! I almost remembered something. Nearly level 20. Oh yeah, if you're already at level 20, you gotta want to push to that 25 for sure. For sure. Oh, Holgar, the AI Viking. The Viking AI is back. His code is moody. All right. Then you got Bombardment. Guy was saying pretty good things about that. From here, you got to search either Firebolt or Fireball. All right, cool. Oh my. You think that if you not play tank the first weekend, you'd be at 25? Yeah. Your tank's level 11, cleric's 19. Yeah, damn, yeah, that is a lot of time invested for sure. And obviously my pace isn't the same as everybody else. I like to screw around and just go adventure nooks and crannies of the world, and we're going to get into that tonight too. All right, Lightning Strike. That I'd be excited about. And I'm not going to reveal what my new character name will be, because you know what would happen, but it's going to be fun. It's going to reflect a big piece of me and my interests, let's put it that way. Frostbolt, he said okay things about those. Shattering Shards. Cone of Cold. So I need to understand what I'm getting into here. Oh, we have an ad break. Oh no. Oh no. We're just going to keep talking. It's not like we're doing anything groundbreaking. Wow, they ran a 3-minute ad on me. That's pretty rough. Let me make sure that's turned down all the way. Oh, damn. How did that happen? Let's try that. Sorry, guys. I might have been screwing around with the little slider here. That's why the ads are a little ambitious. All right. Next ad starts in 23 minutes. There we go. I think we fixed that. Yeah. What was I talking about? Cone of Cold. Where are you at, baby? No, that was Shell. Cone of Cold. Templated skill. What does a templated skill mean? I don't even know. Mana 10, cooldown 20, range, frontal cone, base skill. Blast a vortex of freezing wind in a cone in front of you, dealing 125% ice damage and applying frozen to targets with chilled. So you would have to chill somebody first, right? All right, so that's to push back. That's you get back, mother. Yeah. All right. Where's the chill? Like, where's the chill? Blizzard chill into cone of cold. Okay. Okay. Amplified lightning strike. That seems like a lot of fun. Lightning strike applies up to 10 additional stacks of shocked based on its charge of level when it's cast. Additionally, if cast at full charge, lightning strike will also hit other nearby targets at base power. That sounds fun. So the stacks they're talking about, if I'm not wrong, isn't the shocked like every time they get hit by somebody else, they take a shock damage? I think I have that right. This shit's so complicated, dude. It's fun that it's complicated. I'm not complaining. Combust. Instantly combust your target, dealing 125% fire damage and applying conflagrating if they are burning. All right. We'll try to pretend like we know where that's going. All right. Then we break off over here. What was this? Oh, yeah. We got to scroll up because you guys can't see that. Hold on. I can't see it. You can't see it. Shell. So it's just a shell around yourself defensive. I think the guy that I was watching, maybe we go watch his video if we get bored. He went with Blink, though, because it's just so powerful. Which I would probably be more inclined to do that as well, just because one of my favorite things about playing Ranger is just getting the hell away. I love it. Because bam, 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 bye, you can't catch me. So I would definitely probably be in the Blink camp. There's all the instantly teleport 20 meters in the direction you're moving, breaks all rooting effects. Oh, nice. Breaks all rooting effects. That's badass. What's the cooldown? 30 seconds. Okay. After casting Blink, your next Fireball, Frostbolt, or Lightning Strike cast within 3 seconds casts instantly. Damn. That sounds like that could get really vicious. I'm getting a little more intrigued. Let me catch up over here. That's right. There's all the swag. All right. Accelerative Blink. So this is the upgrade he was talking about. After casting Blink, your next Fireball, 3 seconds. I don't get it. Upgrade to Blink. I don't think they have this one written down right. I don't know. Has anybody else known that or noticed that the wiki seems to be just really slow? Oh my. Wonder what's going on with their hosting. Let's try wandering over here. Slumber. Nice. I did see that on the one raid that I went into where the sleep was pretty damn nice. I do like that. You think that's right? When you blink, your next skill is faster cast. Yeah, I heard that, but what's the... This is 3 seconds. So I'm wondering what this one... Is it just going even faster? Or is the blink faster and further? I don't understand. Slumber applies incapacitated to targets in a small area around the primary target. Last 10 seconds. So hell yeah, that's another really beautiful preemptive before attack with a party, and just defensive if you just gotta like knock that little bit of a mob down at a choke point. That'd be pretty cool. You haven't looked at anything, Mage? You have no desire to play. Blink isn't loading. The blink that isn't loading is unyielding blink. It's a CC break. Okay. Let me try to reload this page and find out. My God, this thing's so slow right now. It's not my internet. Like everything else is loading fast. And just for some reason the wiki. Oh God. Still not loading. All right. It's not going to behave. Enchant weapon. Okay. Enchant up to one ally's weapon to match your current elemental empowerment. So I need to read about the elemental empowerment. Do you have to choose like one of those that you're going with at a specific time? I think you do. Oh, it's named after me, Hoarfrost. Oh, not that kind of whore. All right. Unleash a blast of icy wind at target location, dealing 125% ice damage and applying chilled. Okay, so that's applying the chilled. Where was this bad boy? Cone of cold. Yes. So boom, boom, right there, right? Because you got to have, you want that ice damage on the people that already chilled. So the Hoarfrost looks pretty damn good. I think I'm going to go join my wife. I talked her into going to this spa and they have the cryotherapy. I'll be thinking of that spell at that point. Oh, well, Shatter. Let's look. You know, Pockets, we should get on one time, and I haven't figured out how to do a joint stream, which I'm sure is not hard at all. But we should talk some ashes together. That'd be fun. I've always been a little, let me put this the right way. I've always been interested in joining some of the other content creators, to put it that way. Alpha 2, Shatter, targeted. When you deal lightning damage to a recently frozen target, they are dealt bonus 300 ice damage. Oh, damn. So you can see how these combos go up. But my question is, where does that come into play? The elemental empowerment. I need to read about that. I think they have a hot link, don't they? Yeah, we'll find it. All right. Look at Harry Potter over here smiling. He's got those Irish eyes, baby. Chain lightning. So this is upper level here. You had great plans to stream 2 weekdays at night during phase 1. Don't have the motivation. Yeah, I hear you. I'm trying to do it. I'm trying to be, what is the word? Why is the word not coming into my mind? I'm trying to be more disciplined and consistent with the Rangers of Verra podcast. Which wouldn't that make it interesting if I start playing a mage alt? Oh boy, choices. Just because I do want to build up the stream. Euphoric says, I think it empowers your auto attacks based on the last element from a spell you cast. Okay. I'm going to have to go check some videos out on that to see, reading it on a page sometimes doesn't do it for me. I don't learn that way. Sometimes I need to see it in action, hands-on. Aftershock, casting chain lightning on primary target with shattered causes the attack to trigger twice. Damn. Uh-oh. Oh no. Oh no. What is going on with the wiki? So lightning strike gives you electric auto attacks, and you can imbue that on a party member. Oh, spicy. Let's see. We could just go find a video instead of me reading the ones that aren't even showing up. Prismatic Beam. He did talk about this. Channel a powerful beam in front of you that periodically deals 50% magic damage and has additional effects based on your elemental empowerment. There's all the numbers between the different things. You can apply chilled, fire damage, burning, lightning damage. Nice. That one looks hella spicy. You think Crix was a mage? Yeah, I started watching one of his videos today. I think it's eternally long, so I didn't get to it. We might go that route though. We might go that route. Yeah, he's done so much friggin' testing that he would be the one to go to. Let's see. Place a powerful rune of magic on the ground beneath you that grants you arcane might while standing within it. Lasts 15 seconds. So that's like a grand finale on your fireworks boost. Pirate software with Interseer. Yeah, I started watching that, and then my wife started talking to me again. So that might be the go-to. That might be the go-to, Euphorics. I only caught part of that because I was doing other. I don't know if I was playing the game or I was waiting to play the game. I don't know what the hell I was doing. It was waiting to play the game Friday when he was talking to him, right? Something like that. Let's see. Fuse. Boom, boom. Yeah, let me go find that video real quick. Let me do that. Let's switch to this bad boy. Booyah, booyah. Let's turn that off real quick. I don't know. I'm interested in the mage. I am. Would I have to have a Mages of Verra show for that? I mean, it feels a little wrong. Let's go take a look. Where's this YouTube? Voiced mine YouTube. We're going to be a React channel tonight. We're going to be just like Asmongold. All right. I had it in my history, I think. Hold on. No, you don't get to see my Oh, it was right there on the main page. There we go. All right, hold on. Let's go right there. Boom. 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 Let's go back to my room. All right. Let me turn that music player off real quick. Let's turn that off, and we'll turn this on, and here we go.
Tell everybody in chat who you are while we play Ashes in the background.
Yes, I am Stephen Sharif. I am the creative director and founder of Intrepid Studios, creating Ashes of Creation.
Hell yeah. So what is your day-to-day operations like for you?
Also known as the Duck Lord to, I believe, the goblins in chat.
The Duck Lord.
That is true. He summoned a whole bunch of ducks. They are radiant ducklings.
Look at all these quacks.
Harm them. Chat has been looking for ducklings around the map, and they're quacking in game now because of you.
We've got to put in some duckling scavenger hunts and Easter eggs into the game that are just like little interactable.
Is this quality hit on Steven's part, or what's this?
Have a loot container or something.
Are you adding a wish duck? Is that what you said?
Oh, I love this idea, by the way.
Duckling. Oh, it's so good.
Okay, so I did catch this piece of it, and I love this idea because if nobody saw my post, but I made a post on the forums that there should be XP given for miles traveled, and I was kind of joking. But where they're going with this, I want tucked away in the little nooks and crannies of the world so that you're not just running down the roads in the quickest paths. I want what they're about to talk about here. He had him on a tiny screen. Ah, okay.
It's so good.
Just like enter the server, find the duckling. It's fantastic. All right, so I think the first question I have is, what do your day-to-day operations look like as a game director for such a large project? I've done game director stuff for smaller projects. I've also worked on games going way, way back. So I started in 2004 at Blizzard Entertainment. Then I left there. Did freelance for a long time, came back in 2009, worked there until 2016. Then I worked for Amazon Game Studio on a lumberyard, which is Game Engine, so kind of extended away from games. And then now I own my own studio, do all this, stream games.
Oh, lumberyard.
Teach other people to make games as well. And I think it'd be really interesting for people to know, like, what is this like for you working on such a massive scale project?
You know, it is kind of different depending on the phase that we're in and the milestone that we're in. And that might be, not necessarily unique to me. I think that as we move through different stages of the product development, my eye or my need tends to gravitate either towards design, towards art direction, towards engineering, towards DevOps or live ops. It just kind of depends which fire is biggest at the moment, and then my priorities shift. And that can be on a day-to-day basis when we're in a super test and react phase like we are now. Everything's very, very agile. We suspended kind of our sprint status, and we've gone entirely to a Kanban approach so that we can, appropriately prioritize issues as they arise during this live testing. That can be a bit hectic. It is definitely a context switching for me on a literal hourly basis during the day. But, if we were talking about 6 months ago, then it was very much in the design phase and testing of our feature development. And if we were talking about a month ago, it was very much in our DevOps and build process and release train phase, right? Trying to get ready for the testing that we had going then. My job is just to be where I'm needed so that I can offer the direction, the approval, the insight to kind of what the overarching goal and our direction should be so that we can make informed decisions and have alignment amongst the rest of the directors and the team.
Yeah, so effectively trying to keep the vision on track.
That's right.
And that means switching hats quite a lot, especially with such rapid.
He's driving the train, baby.
I was really excited about was seeing you get into game and actually talk to people and kind of do the community building stuff. One of the things that I notice a lot of the times right now that's lacking in these large scale MMOs is a developer touch. Just someone coming in and being like, hey, I love that you love the game. Let's do something fun together. And I don't
Yeah, a developer touch and a developer that loves to play the game, and the whole reason he's making the game is because he wants to play the game. That is something I don't know how often that happens.
I don't think a lot of people expected that. I think a lot of people really, really liked that, to be honest. So
Well,
it's cool
I
to see.
think that really emanates from a player first perspective, right? My background, my history, I wasn't in game development when I started Intrepid. I was just a lover of MMOs. And it was somewhat
Okay.
serendipitous that, living in San Diego, having made a lot of friends at my local game hobby store called Games Empire, I would play Warhammer 40K, Warhammer
Nice.
Fantasy. I would do, tabletop RPG campaigns and
Oh my God, what is the game? Oh, Mage Knight. I don't know if any of you ever played Mage Knight. I bet you Steven played that at some point. I think it's one of the coolest games they had.
Finder and D&D, and I got to know a lot of Sony Online Entertainment devs through that interaction. And being a lover of MMOs, I was always disheartened with kind of, the approach that many publishers took, which didn't seem to put the player first. So from my perspective, that created a kind of window of opportunity to have a more player centric company come along and, tap into the market
That's when he made the great decision to go down this road.
share that is the MMORPG gaming community, which was really just looking for a company to preserve the integrity of the game environment that they're playing in by offering no pay to win, by offering no pay to convenience, and to have the level of insight from the boardroom that all of the developers have with regards to the game development, and not having some marketing director that doesn't know how games work and how communities want things to be coming in telling the developers what they should be doing.
Hmm.
And that was kind of the perspective that I think lends to this interaction that people see right now in Alpha 2. I'm very much involved, and I try to extend that level of involvement down to our development team as well, where they're in the Discord talking with people, they're on streams talking with people, and
Look
kind
at
of letting
pockets.
them engage with the community, which not a lot of companies, I think, at our size or at our project size do.
Yeah, so you actually keyed on something really interesting there. The no pay to win, no pay for convenience. What is your overall vision for monetization in this game? Because I think that's kind of core to how people feel about games right now. It's a very hot button issue. Is like, is there any pay to win in this? What level of pay to win is it? How is this for you? What is your vision for
Hmm.
this?
So, from a monetization standpoint, my perspective is that games as a service do best when they have a steady level of income, and that is more related to a subscription model. I think that a subscription model is not a high barrier to entry. People can jump in and play the game for a month on a $15 sub fee, see if they like it. They don't have to buy the product for a $60 box price.
Yeah.
So we don't have a box price associated with Ashes of Creation. It is just a subscription model. And then the responsibility really lives on the development team to take that investment by the player and to consistently release cadence out new content so that you keep that lifetime
There's the
value
original
and the
link.
players keep staying subscribed. When it comes to microtransactions, my perspective is that so long as it doesn't touch the integrity of in-game power, that includes things like expanding inventory slots or fast travel or buying stats or anything that is related to your output of influence in the game, that should not be on the marketplace. But if it is purely cosmetic, and just to be
We're gonna have an
clear,
ad
even though
rolling
we're
in
we're
9
willing
minutes. I
and
can't
going to be offering
snooze it
purely
anymore,
cosmetic
but
marketplace
we'll
items,
dance
they
around it.
will not be the best cosmetics that you can acquire either. The best cosmetics that you can acquire, I believe, should exist within the game, and that the marketplace is a way to provide additional flavor and
That is going to be key. Like the cosmetics don't matter as much to me. Look at you Forks, a capacitor conjurer. Congratulations. Um, it matters, doesn't matter, but like I don't want a bunch of people running around with stuff that you could only pay for. Like I want to see people. I want to clearly know, and I've heard Margaret talk about this. I want to clearly know on some of the things that, oh damn, you earned that, son. You really earned that.
additional options that players have access to. So our focus is subscription model with a cosmetic marketplace only, no pay to win, no pay to convenience, no box price. In my opinion, that gives the best of both worlds when it comes to low barrier to entry, motivation for the dev team to produce content updates, and
What do you guys think on the sub model? I don't know what the practice is at Blizzard with Warcraft, World of Warcraft, but like if it's a sub model, and let's just say you played for 6 months, you get your character all leveled up, something happens, like, you know, you get deployed somewhere if you're in the military, whatever it is, some life thing happens, so you don't sub for a while. Is that character going to be preserved? And if so, how long? That's a question I'd like to know the answer to.
No fiddling with the integrity of the in-game achievement.
I'm going to tell you right now, everybody loved that. That's fantastic, man. So actually, something along that line is one of the things that I've been wondering about. A bunch of people have been talking about. There are cosmetic mounts on the store, and we know that certain mounts are faster than other mounts. The mount right here is 175% ground speed. We've seen mounts at 135% ground speed. Are the mounts that you buy from the store, are they going to be faster? Is it going to be a skin for mounts? How does this work?
Oh, so you must acquire your mount in game first, and then you can apply a visual skin to it from the store. So it doesn't affect the stats. You can't buy a skin and then summon the skin. You have to first acquire the mount. The mount stats that you acquire are in game based off of either animal husbandry system or vendor, or if you're a mayor. And then if you own a skin that you purchased, then you can apply that visual appearance to the mount that you've acquired in game.
That's awesome. So what is your feeling about regional pricing? Regional pricing is a huge hot button issue, especially with my community. We've got a lot of people from Brazil. We've got a lot of people all over Europe, a lot of people from Australia. And I am very passionate about this subject. So how do you guys want to handle that?
My perspective is that price harmonization is a good thing. However, it must be coupled with unique region locks associated with that price harmonization. So when you offer different prices for certain different regions, those prices apply to accounts within that region's publishing. And sometimes that can be handled by a publisher for a territory. The Intrepid is intending to self-publish in North America and Europe, and we are open to obviously partners as we get down the road who share our vision of what Ashes needs to be for territories outside of those areas. But then what I would say is that even though we have price harmonization for those territories, they would be
it doesn't really affect us
from an account services perspective.
I actually really like that. So I've got a background in offensive security, and one of the things that we had to fight against all the time was bots. So when you make it so that, say, somebody from Brazil is paying to only play on the Brazilian servers at the Brazilian price, you're stopping outside entities from just buying a ton of accounts in Brazil and then using those to go and flood the U.S. servers at a cheaper price. That's really a big thing.
Okay, I see where they're going.
Massive for that. So good. Hell yeah. Like right now, there's no soul binding on any of the gear. Is that intended game design?
Good. I hate soul binding.
No, it is intended game design. Obviously, you've done a great job in helping to communicate with your community, which is really something that I got to say, Thor, from myself and from Intrepid as a team. We love listening to you because you're very knowledgeable when it comes to game development, having the experience that you obviously have. And it's difficult sometimes to find, content creators with the reach that you have, streamers with the reach that you have, helping to educate communities and, what different phases of development look like, especially from that of an alpha. And when we talk about, the current economy, the systems that are in the game, there are still missing features that relate to this idea of an open economy, which means that very little to no things are intended to be soulbound. They're all a part of an open economy, which are missing a few features in phase one. As we know, phase one is about, stability and performance. And as we enter into phase two and phase three, some of those additional features and systems will come online, one of which is deconstruction, tempering over enchantments. Those are expected to sink open economy items out of the economy to help kind of reach that balance between the faucets and the sinks.
So with that in mind, if items are intended to not have soul binding, how is your team going to effectively plan to fight RMT? For those who don't know, that's real money transaction, which means if I find a really good item and I want to sell it to another person, I can trade money outside of the game to trade that item to them. And I've had to fight that fight, and it's very tough, especially with no soul binding.
Well, first of all, what I would say is, first and foremost, we are going to be investing heavily in our GMs and in our CS teams, which we have a plan, and we have some rudimentary elements of that plan currently in alpha that relate to player heat mapping, action heat mapping, and kind of RMT flags that will then cause some investigative things to occur on our side. This is something that I think has to be done in order to preserve the integrity of the...
There will be Verra cops watching you. The Verra NSA will know if you're up to this.
the economy of the game. RMT is obviously, even in a game where you had 100% soulbound, can still be done, whether that be through things like power leveling, purchasing accounts, whatever it might be. A soulbound approach to the economy doesn't solve that per se. You still have to, as
Yeah,
a
I don't like it.
company, choose to invest in combating those things. And I think many players who played in this genre know that at some point the lights get turned off for many publishers around making those investments. However, that's not our mandate. Our mandate is to ensure that in order to provide a environment where integrity matters, we have to be willing to invest not just in the tools that discover these types of things, but also in the CS response that includes the GM's availability.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And like, that's a cat and mouse game. For anybody who doesn't understand, you're like, oh, it's going to be full of RMT. It's going to be full of bots. It will. And they'll be fighting it, and they'll evolve their strategy. And then the opponents will evolve their strategy. And it just goes back and forth. It is a never ending battle that never goes away.
It
And one of
only
the things
ends. It only ends when the developer or the publisher says, "All right, I'm done. Go do
Yep.
what you want."
Yep. And on top of that, it's also highly organized. All of the gold sellers you see across all of the games you've ever seen, largely part of the same mega groups that actually do this. It's not just some kid in his basement. The grand majority of it is done by very efficient, very automated groups that make a ton of money doing it.
Yeah, and to be fair, it's actually very harmful to the company as well, because oftentimes those bad actors are using fraudulent financial information in order to acquire the accounts necessary to facilitate the high bot counts that they do, which, as we know from a merchant services perspective, obviously, as those chargebacks occur, as that fraudulent activity happens, it can be very costly to the company. So it actually behooves us to make sure that we're on top of our game by stopping those bad actors at the edge, first and foremost, and then catching very quickly the signatures that can help identify them.
Yeah, most definitely. I'm really glad. This is good. This is good for me to hear.
There's going to be a war room for Verra.
We're going to talk about guilds.
And the RMT
right
stuff.
Now, we are a massive guild on the server.
Yeah, this is important.
We've got 40 sub-guilds. All of them are completely full. So we've got 30 people in every single one of those guilds. How is it that you guys are planning to either embrace or combat this kind of behavior? Because really, at the end of the day, we are a Zerg guild. We are. Massive community, tons of people on the server, and this can be intimidating for others.
Well, I think there's a few things that go into that. That's a big question.
Yep.
So first and foremost, we don't have all of our guild progression in the game yet. That means that, guilds have the ability to acquire certain resources, which then get invested into the guild progression system that allows the guild to kind of choose two different paths at each level. Either they're going to have the expanded member allotment, or they can invest in passive skills and other features that the guild has access to. So guilds have to kind of make a decision. Do we want to go more members, or do we want to go more power from a passive and or resources perspective? So that doesn't solve it, right? Because obviously, if you're well organized, and I was very well organized in the guilds that I used to run in my MMOs, I would have my department of agri.
I don't even know how people, like, it is a special person, and Jamie's really good. Like, I'm watching Jamie do our guild right now. It is a special person to be able to run a guild on top of life and playing the game and doing all these things. It's really crazy. It's like the fantasy football guy on steroids.
Agriculture, I would have my engineering core, I would have my strike team and my task forces, and they all operated on different TeamSpeak servers. This was back in the day. And I would have a commander for each one of those, and they would report to me. It was a very organized structure, right? So it's not difficult to essentially delegate that power off into different organizations. However, what we do then to kind of combat that is in our encounter design, when it comes to events that actually leverage guild structures, such as node sieges, node wars, guild wars, and castle sieges, we intend to provide objectives that not just relate to the number of people that you have, but also limit some of the participation to group size objectives within these larger events that can turn the tide of power in the event. So,
and I'm probably misconstruing what he's saying right here, but he said limiting the group size. I think that's going to be critical. I wonder, like, when we have these massive world events like a Node Siege, something like that, because we want these super high populations in a world, and most times it wouldn't be a problem because we're spread all over this massive map. are there going to be throttles on being able to come into certain areas when the population gets too heavy? Because even when server meshing is working 100%, like down to that micro node, if you will, of server, that micro mesh of it, whatever we're going to call it, it only has a certain capacity, right? So I wonder how they're going to handle that. I really do. That's definitely a question. If I ever get to talk to Steven, I want to know, like, how do you handle that in game if all of a sudden you have thousands of people trying to rush to this one spot, but we know that the goal is what, 250 versus 250?
Situation, we have mechanics that kind of start to mitigate the amount of benefit that can come from a numbers perspective. Now, that doesn't entirely remove the numbers perspective. There are other features that intend to kind of make it more difficult for larger organizations to take advantage of distributing their player base across multiple guilds. And that is the idea that when guilds own a thing, whether that be a castle or a guild hall, you are limiting the reach that that power has to influence that group of people. So if I just said, no, we're going to let guilds be 1,000 in size, then what we're doing is we're allowing the power that we want to provide guilds from the castle ownership or from the guild hall ownership or from the freehold system to be delegated out then to all 1,000 of those members. But when we start to bring that down in size, now there's a competition for the scarcity of resources and there's an opportunity for political betrayal. I can't tell you how many times in the games that I played where that scarcity of benefit has caused rifts between my commanders or between different groups within the guild that then can potentially erupt in a civil war, right? And those are the types of player emergent behaviors that we want to encourage by introducing these systems of soft friction where people compete for things.
Yeah, that makes sense completely. I actually love that. So I came from EVE Online. I played EVE Online for about 15 years. I was the alliance leader of Strybog. Clade was about 1,200 players. We had to move all around the map, highly organized strike teams. Usually in those teams, it's between 5 and 15 people. So I'm very used to this kind of gameplay. That's exactly what I was hoping for. So that's going to be a lot of fun. Because yeah, Zerging, that kind of stuff, that only happened when we were in massive fleet battles. But when you're doing that, it's not 300 versus 300. It's tons of groups of 5 versus tons of groups of 5, all on the same battlefield together.
Yes,
so you have
absolutely.
to individually organize those. And we use things like TeamSpeak, we use Discord, we use all kinds of different stuff to be able to do this. And it was incredibly important to pull it off that way because if you didn't, you just get owned, man. Like you have to be more organized. Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely. And the way that from a design perspective that we can encourage those things is we can put specific group-based encounters within that broader ecosystem of the engagement, right? That gives some power to the guilds that instead chose to focus on a smaller, tight-knit core group and go down the path of higher passives and benefits instead of group membership. And now they're better positioned to win those group v group engagements.
Yeah, it's going to be a real art to get this right.
Have that choice of the power tree. So that's an important part of the guild progression. The other thing I want to note is that, like, from my perspective, the two games that I really enjoyed playing, Lineage 2 and Arcade. In Arcade, my guild that I started back in like 2003 and since resigned when I started Intrepid as its leader, we had 1,500-ish people on our server. And we broke that up into multiple guilds. And on Curios, for the first, like the name of our server, for the first 6 months, we owned every raid boss. We were the first to do the raid bosses. Every time it spawned, we did all the raid bosses. So we were getting all this gear, right? And over
all right, we're in progress with an ad break, but I don't see a lot of Twitch viewers right now. We're just going to roll with it.
Catch up until the point where it was this full-blown war of the entire server against our guild. And eventually the ship righted itself, right? The haves versus the have-nots, they started to reach the struggle point, and then it dispersed, and the guild got overturned. But like that is the type of interesting political environment.
Oh, the politics are going to be great.
I think very compelling and get some level of emotional investment from the players.
The guild's going to need a Secretary of State,
working to change the
or the nodes
of the
and their vassals
environment on their server. That's a fun experience.
Yeah, no, I super agree with that. It's one of the things I was telling people before is some of the best gameplay that I ever had in EVE Online was in small, tight-knit groups where we're highly efficient, just picking at a really large enemy. Because you can be more efficient, you can be more skilled in a tiny
Nimble.
group and just do a lot of damage to a large
Asymmetrical
group,
warfare.
in
I mean,
that
that's what
case,
we're
it's
talking
alliance
about
or
here.
corporation, because they just can't move as fast.
Yep.
You know? And you get in, you get out, you steal something, you kill something, and you just have a bunch of groups doing this.
They're like,
They're
what
chucking you
happened?
Down out of the war, you know? And that may
Yeah.
not look like a bad thing, but when you got 100 groups doing that, man, it's rough.
Absolutely. And another key point, about the Zerg mechanics, right? A big issue that I think that help Zergs be Zergs is the ability to easily fast travel throughout the world, right?
Yep. Yeah.
In Ashes, we don't have
Yep.
that ability, right? You cannot
So-
easily fast travel throughout the world.
That's my question, though, is if there's a guild war or if a node declares war on another node, what are the throttles going to be for population in that area? I want to see how that gets handled.
And that is an intended game design, again, to mitigate the response from these large number organizations that may not focus as much on subterfuge or espionage because they have
And thank
the
you,
numbers,
YouTube,
right?
for all
But
the
they don't have
viewers.
the
Digging it,
organization or
digging
the
it.
skill. And that is the textbook definition of what a Zerg is. So fast travel is an additional component that helps to mitigate. There's not
Agreed.
one particular solution or
So many people that don't really know Ashes, that haven't been like in the deep dive cult of Ashes thus far, or just never really jived with the spirit of Ashes, I guess is a better way to put it. They always argue for fast travel, and they want to fundamentally change that. That will break everything in this game. I actually don't think I'm overstating that. I think that breaks every single thing that they are trying to do in this game if you add fast travel. And so many people that just want it to be their thing that they're used to want to keep going back and saying, no, let's have fast travel. But there are very specific reasons Steven has been so adamant about this. The only form of fast travel I've seen so far, and I'm sure that this gets addressed with a pain point, is there have been times in my first weekend where if you died way away from your home Ember Spring that you had set, that you might say, yeah, that's fine. I don't need to go get my stuff. I really didn't have much on me. I'll go home. That's it so far. I don't think that's going to be very efficient or very common. I think they're going to mitigate that.
Mechanic to a Zerg, there is a confluence of solutions that make it more difficult to Zerg. But ultimately, in an MMORPG,
Zerg!
numbers are relevant, right? Then to a degree, they are a mandate of power. So, you can't entirely stop it, but you can put a lot of hoops that they need to jump through in order to manage that large of an organization, which then just introduces the likelihood that that organization will at some point fall apart or be susceptible to some type of political intrigue.
So what are you going to do when one of those
Yeah, the
large
Unstuck
also
is getting
has
used a lot.
Very well trained
True story.
online spy corps?
And I think I remember who it was. Hold on. I'm going to be one. We need to address this. I think I heard somebody talking about the Unstuck being limited to like 15 meters from where you're at. But that's like a fine tuning. I don't think they've been too concerned about in the first, we'll just call it the first 3 weeks, right? I think you'll see that change coming pretty soon. I am all about it with being a Ranger of Verra on the spying. Let's get into this.
I mean,
That's a
I'm
good
just
question.
theoretically, just theoretical. Definitely
Hypothetically
not
speaking.
something that's
Just
re- theoretically,
theoretically.
just a little
Well, like I
This
said,
could
there's
be a lot
not
of fun.
one solution. There's a number
Yep.
of different things that make it difficult.
Oh, it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be a lot of fun. Oh,
Yep.
So let's see. Are there any plans to bring mayor and guild systems together more, rather than being two separate systems?
I agree.
think that
I agree.
in the Venn diagram of overlap, there is obviously some overlap between guild affiliation and node citizenship and mayorship. But as the game continues to expand and as we introduce more nodes, that is going to become something that's more increasingly difficult
Exactly.
to kind of
Exactly. And I'm sure they're going to get to, maybe they'll get to the situation that they had where, Real Pirates declared war on that other guild that stream sniped them, apparently, while they were doing a bug report, and they got it handed to them. distance is going to become more of a defense also as we get more nodes because yes, I took the slowest route possible, took some whiskey breaks, some potty breaks, all that. It took me about 3 hours and I didn't go just node to node. I went up into some of the areas and I'll do it again Friday. But when you have that massive area, you also get defense. What the hell is that called in the army? But it's you get a layer of defense from distance, and there's probably a very simple term for that that's escaping me.
Manage from a guild influence perspective. There's a reason why mayorship, citizenship, and guilds are intended to be separate. Guilds I view as very much a territorial, I own this thing, my guild is the owner of these things.
Sov
And
was like
nodes,
that in Eve. Yeah, sovereignty was
right.
like that in Eve. Exactly that.
And nodes are really not intended to be that space. Nodes are intended to be content hubs that any player has access to, whether that content is, narrative arcs that send you out into the world and the POIs around you, whether that be housing that you have access to, or artisanship services, or vendor tables. Like, these are things that, should players choose to be a citizen, they have access to be. Now, this brings in the concept of what's called pseudo factions. And again, we are not a faction based game by design. However, we do
Uh-oh.
introduce many mechanisms
There
by
we go. We
which
got
pseudo
clear Steven.
factions
There
can
we
come
go.
to be. And the reason for that is because these pseudo factions help create player friction, which relate to the last conversation we just had, the last question, right? How do we soft introduce opportunities where players' interests can be at odd, even within their guild organizations? If you have a node that half of your members are a part of, and a node that another half of your members are a part of, and you have an adversary who is aware of this, they can start to pit interests against one another because of the scarcity of resource design. So, by that truth, we want nodes to be part and separate from guilds. We want social
Yeah.
organizations to be part and separate. We
Good.
want religions to be part and separate, right? These are all competing progression paths that don't have really a strong relationship with guilds.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. I like that. I think it's interesting to have separate systems like that because then it's not all, as you said, based around the biggest guild. That was one of the things that really attracted me
Got
to
about
the
an hour
guild
and a half
system
left
right
on
off the
this.
bat. Was an EVE Online sovereignty basically
We'll
meant,
give it a
I
shot.
own this area of nullsec, get out or we kill you, right? And it was up to them to defend it. You could always sneak in and all kinds of stuff, but if they were, an on their toes adversary, they'd be able to stop that, roll all the wormholes, stop you from getting in. And in this case, it's like, no, I live here. We all live here.
Yes,
And those guys
right.
are trying to break it, so let's all fight them, right? And I like
Yes.
that. I really liked that idea because it's more of an inclusive system while still having player to player tension, even if you're part of the biggest guild or running solo, and I like
Yeah,
that.
I think the name of the game there is conflict and interest, right?
Yeah.
We want to provide a lot of opportunities for there to be a conflict in interest, because
Mm-hmm.
when those types of decisions have to get made, that is an emotional investment from the player. That is something that's emergent. That is something that provides the dilemma, which is to a degree pretty fun, and makes for very interesting, non-prescriptive, predictable outcomes.
Yeah. So here's an interesting one. In Eve, spycraft is very big. We know spycraft is going to be huge in this as well. And spycraft is like, I go and make an alt,
Very
I join your
interested.
faction, I get intel from the inside, and then I'm able to feed it back to my own people. Maybe I steal some things.
I'm not
maybe I
interested in
disrupt,
that.
Maybe I,
No.
scout your position and give that away, and then we turn on you in PvP. There's so many different ways to disrupt with spycraft.
That part
How
I'm
is
interested.
Ashes going to handle this? Because in Eve, we had something called a player API, but that fit into the game world. It was like, I can read your in-game mails, I can see all the trades you've ever done, and I can see all of your skills. And the reason they did that was it's counterplay. So if I had a really good spy detection team, they'd look through all this stuff and try to identify where you have screwed up in your logs. Or you could try to hide it by making a totally clean alt and try to, ferment it, as we would call it, for a great deal of time so that it looked like you were a normal player and that it wasn't an alt. There's so many ways to play the cat and mouse game there, and I'm worried that there's no counterplay to this kind of behavior in Ashes right now.
So I
Yeah.
guess I'm not actually worried about the spy thing. I don't want to play that as much. I do want to have the stealthy skills and get behind and do the spying legitimately, like first person, not trying to backdoor into somebody's guild.
I think that's a big question.
Yeah.
So when there's a number of different mechanisms at play when it comes to spying or subterfuge. And there are some safeguards against, where we feel that we need to kind of perturb that gameplay to a degree. One of those things is citizenship and needing to own housing within a node before you can become a citizen. There is account-wide housing ownership restrictions as well. So that limits kind of the breadth of potential intrigue that one account has access to. There are levels of obfuscation that we even see in PvP right now with regards to like health plates and targeting plates with things. That is also true with the types of caravans that we intend to deploy that can have visual indicators of cargo being taken on them with certain decoy cargo, so that you can have decoy caravans or decoy merchant ships that may not have things on them.
Oh,
There is
spicy.
registration periods where for a castle siege or for a node siege that the mayor or the castle lord has governance over participation and approves individual people as being a part of certain sides. There are permission restrictions. Who has the ability to activate certain respawn locations during a castle siege, or who has the ability to allow for ports to exist within the castle siege level design.
Such a big ass
There's
game.
a lot that
So
goes
crazy.
into kind of picking and choosing which dials we want players to have access to from an espionage perspective, and which dials will just make it too difficult for that counterplay to exist against the espionage. That is obviously something that we're going to continue to tune. The balance pendulum always swings, right? It
Yeah.
is a constant thing that you want to be cognizant of. Make sure you're collecting player feedback, watching what their actions are, and you never, send that pendulum full swing. You always increment it in different directions to kind of find the sweet spot. So, like all systems, whether it be related to espionage, the subterfuge, just counterplay design, these confluence of systems need to come together to find a healthy resting place that the players can engage with. And it's our job to make sure we're constantly inspecting and iterating to ensure that that balance is met.
So somebody asked something interesting in chat, kind of related to nodes and node leadership and ownership like this. Right now, we only have the ability to vote in our mayor, which makes it a popularity contest. What is ahead for other types of nodes? Because I've read a bunch of things
Yeah.
in the forums, but I'd like to hear your
Yeah.
take on this.
Yeah, there are three additional election methods that have yet to be implemented, as we are, of course, in phase one. And those election methods relate to a kind of an oligarchical, a combat, and a quest-driven kind of performance perspective.
The
Right
combat's going
now,
to be
you're
insane.
experiencing the scientific election method, which is a
Insane.
purely democratic process. That is for the scientific node type. The economic node type is related to an auction system for the mayorship, which players can pool their interest in node currency towards electing a mayor. And then you have
That's
on
going to be
the
interesting.
military side, there.
That feels very feudal. Like obviously you're going to have the lords getting together to select who it is going to be, and you have to be really involved in that node to have a whole bunch of that glint or the node currency inside of there. So that's going to be an interesting one for sure.
Is a repeating arena of mayoral candidates that can have assigned a number of supporters who participate in a node-wide arena, like
Wow.
once during each week of the election
That's a
process. And
flex.
then they acquire a number of points based off of their deaths and kills and participation against the other combatants.
That's going to be a
And then there
flex.
is finally a religious node type, which is intended to provide a kind of repeatable interaction with these temples and shrines in the religion system across the world through dedicating resources, time towards those quest events to raise to the top of the contribution ladder.
I love
Interesting.
that. That's going to bring a lot
Wow.
of really interesting gameplay into that. Is there a way you can
Wow.
choose what kind of node yours is, or is that just luck of the draw?
So nodes are pre-populated, and you choose which ones you become a citizen of. So we designate node locations and type, and that obviously is so that when we tie our adaptive and dynamic spawner systems for whether it be props or monsters or quests or narrative or whatever it is, those things we want to make sure we have a footprint of node type so that we can relate the narrative structures.
And he just said a couple of words right there, adaptive spawning system. I think too many people that have been in the first 3 weeks right now, and even in the PTR, like for all these months, have gotten too damn comfortable. And we only have these 5 nodes right now, and things have felt pretty predictable. The real adaptive nature of this game is about to start showing its face. I think phase 2, we start seeing a real glimpse of it, like a solid image of it, actually, not just a glimpse. And people are going to have like these routines that they've already built up. These are our grind here, grind there, grind that. When this becomes more adaptive, it's going to, well, it's going to refresh the game for a lot of people, but probably piss a few of them off along the way, which is going to be funny for me.
To them. And then players just go around and they can choose which ones they want to be a part of. The benefit there as well is that we kind of prevent a certain meta from forming in the world where one type is expected over another due to player population. Instead, there is a vassal system that kind of governs how nodes preclude other nodes from advancing within this vassal structure. And by pre-populating these node types, we can ensure a better diversity of landscape across each of the realms.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right, let's switch over to PvP. A lot of people have been complaining about PvP balance in terms of 1v1. What is your guys' approach for balancing when you have a game with 64 archetype combinations?
Yeah, our balance approach is group v group. So, we expect,
yep, rock, paper, scissors, baby.
We are welcoming of the rock, paper, scissor design for 1v1s. There are going to be certain matchups where there is a significant advantage for one archetype or one class over another in a 1v1 situation, and that's okay. That pendulum will swing as well over time, but it's primarily adjudicated by role, right? That defines kind of these interactions. But our goal from a balance perspective is we can always say and expect to the players, if you have a full group versus another full group, then predicated on that group composition, that's how we balance essentially our PvP.
Makes sense. Oh, for the people who are saying, like, what about corruption? It's
again, so fast travel is one big hang up for a lot of people that want to fundamentally change what Ash's creation is. Not going to happen. This is another thing that they're doing totally different, is that balance is group v group with the rock, paper, scissors. A lot of people think that it's going to be the traditional things that happened in WoW, many of which I never experienced, but where a class became obsolete, this, that, and the other thing. It's going to be a whole different experience here.
Permanent now? It's actually not. I also thought it was as well, and I went and I actually went and put in a bug report for it because we didn't see it moving, and after grinding for about 30 minutes, it actually slowly fell away. So killing monsters does reduce it now. That is the thing that works.
There may be a couple of, we did just do some changes. The corruption system has been something that we have prioritized iteration.
Yeah, that dial's getting turned.
Course of these last few weeks. As of course there is a competing, problem with corruption right now, in the sense that one, it's not fully feature complete, but two, we're also in a temporary phase of development being an alpha, where a lot of player perspective on their gear potential loss and or progression loss that corruption is supposed to
people are figuring that out.
Is just not as strong hitting in an alpha environment where people are willing to lose their characters. So, in that sense, we're gonna balance a little bit, perhaps overbalance for corruption during the testing period, and then as we enter into more permanent phases of testing, such as alpha phase 2 and alpha phase 3 or beta, that's where we feel we can take the reins off a little bit. The other thing is, as the velocity of development is usually corollary to the amount of bugs that can be introduced.
Yep.
So the faster we go, the higher the likelihood is we might.
There you go. Another thing that I've been saying for a long time, and people have been arguing with me about this. They have a lot of these systems built in certain builds that they have not thrown into this phase 1 of Alpha 2, because you don't want to, you're not trying to introduce all the bugs at one time. You're trying to enter, you're turning that nozzle on. And I'm not a software dev. I don't know what I'm talking about as far as their actual process, but I do know from enough life experience that this makes sense as a process, that you don't want to throw everything at it and try to fix everything at once. And so when they said that we were starting with server stability, I truly believe that. I think they have done a great job on that. They're going to want to get their meshing working, but they're also holding back so much of the stuff for several reasons. One reason is not to give everything away for when the release is, but that's more content centric. The other reason is don't create so many problems for yourself that you can't make progress.
Introduce bugs. That sounds like it's a bug, because the intended experience is that as you have a corruption score, and corruption score is granted by killing other non-combatants, that corruption score whittles away slowly based off of experience gained or death had. So in those two scenarios, you're expected to. Now, we did introduce a feature that we have talked about for a long time called Blight. Blight is essentially a cumulative PK score that gets kept track of as a stat on your character. And even if you have no corruption, but you killed 30 people over the last 5 days and you worked off that corruption, your 31st kill will accrue much faster corruption, and so will your 32nd and 33rd, regardless of your corruption states. So that is intended to help kind of curtail the amount of corruption that's happening. Now, there will be a religious-based quest that, through the investment of resources and time, players can reduce that cumulative score to bring themselves back down.
So, with that in mind, have you seen the behavior known as corruption baiting that players are talking about? This new behavior, it's kind of a degenerate gameplay mode where basically what people are doing is you go to
You bunch of degens.
PvP, and then a whole bunch of non-PvPers rush out and just stand there. So if you AoE, you get corruption for killing them as well as killing the other players.
Yeah, there is supposed to be a setting that, and it might be bugged right now. There's supposed to be a setting right now in the UI. Excuse me. There's supposed to be a combat setting that allows you to, by default, not affect non-flagged players with AoEs. So even if you're force flagged, that setting only applies the targeted spell against other flagged or corrupted players. So it's something we have to look at, but the intent there is to get more granular control over that for the player.
Good. That's really good, because we'd been seeing that where it's like, oh, a guy's coming over with PvP and he's surrounded by 5 people who aren't flagged. I see what you're doing. Yeah, it's like, run away. It's time to leave.
For now, I would say don't use AoE abilities when killing those players. Just use focused single target abilities.
Yep.
Jack them up.
No lightning for me, unfortunately.
Take out their sacrificial lamb, baby.
So this is kind of the elephant in the room. There's a lot of people in this community that come from Asmongold's community. A lot of people, we share audience quite a bit. Asmongold tried to sign into the server today. He got out there at level 1. You signed on. You told people to stop attacking the bald one, which is
The bold one.
deeply hilarious to me. And I was there and I was talking to him on his channel as well, like from his chat. And he ended up basically getting just absolutely wildly attacked by tons of players at
That's
level
terrible.
1 in the starting zone. And players thought that this was valid gameplay. But
Nope.
one of the things that I tried to explain to people is in EVE Online, they actually have a whole section of the game where you just do a quest right in the very beginning. It's instanced off. And if you go in it and, kill players right in the very beginning, that's actually a bannable thing in EVE. Like, nothing is
Correct.
bannable in EVE, but that is
That's right.
bannable in EVE.
That's right.
And it's one of the things that's really interesting about this is some people tried to say that it was some sort of preferential treatment for doing that, but to be real with you, if it's
bull.
if it's
That's
banned in
bull.
EVE, it's probably really goddamn toxic is the way that I felt about it. So let's hear your take on this. How do you feel about this whole scenario, and what do you
Yeah,
want to
that-
improve with the game
that-
to change this later?
That was unfortunate. So there was stuff going on in the background that people weren't aware of. So essentially,
I've heard this part.
I
I'm
was
gonna grab a
watching
refill.
Asmongold getting ready to log in, and of course we're in phase 1, so not all the features are online, not all of our mechanics are online, right? This is us making sure we're getting heavy loads on the servers, us testing our network, us testing the performance, and getting out the major bugs, right? And I've talked about this in the past. There is intended to be some safety measures when it comes to interacting with the open flagging system, the open world flagging system. And to be clear, like, PvP is segmented into different, components. You have events, which are things like guild wars, guild sieges and caravans, right? Those are opt-in. Players can choose to be a part of those. Then you have things like flagging, which is an open world
I don't have that
mechanic
down
that's
yet.
intended to ensure risk
I need to
exists
explore some
for
PvP
things
this
like
weekend.
political activities, for opportunity, for scarcity of resources and or hunting locations. Like that's where PvP is healthy and expected for players to engage with. However, we didn't have our safe zone tech or our PvP suppression tech yet online, and or there's a competing feature that might be implemented, which is
There you go.
basically the
That
prevention
referral
of
link, baby.
open world flagging to apply to character levels that are level 5 or less, or 6 or less, whatever we determine that to be. That tech wasn't yet online, and my knowing that Asmon was going to log in, I fully expected that this was going to be the case. So
Yep.
I was trying to summon him out of the zone. But unfortunately, we had a bug in our player tracking service, which exists outside of the Unreal game servers, right? We have individual server workers that are meshed together to create our open world experience. As players
Okay.
move through the world, they seamlessly transfer authority off of one server to another. You don't notice it, but if you ever press page up when you play, you'll see a little thing that says SW. That refers to our server worker. And as you move through the world, you'll see that number change as authority gets transferred off of you to those servers. So in order to kind of reduce, computational needs of that individual worker, we have these services that live above the server meshing that kind of handles and routes things related to those particular services, whether that be a social service or a player tracking service or an artisanship service or a node service. Like those things have kind of
Just doing
authority
some
and governance
stuff in the background
over
while Steven's
routing
talking here.
information to different server workers. And unfortunately, in our player tracking service, we had an inundation of player population on the worker, the login worker.
You mean
And
Asmongold logged in and it flooded players?
just flooded players onto the server.
It had to be
So
brutal.
we also had, at the same time, we had turned up the verbosity on our logging for the social service because we're having some trouble with it.
No.
And
Ruh-roh.
that was meaning that my RPC, which was summon player, was making it to the server.
He likes his summon player
excuse
command,
me,
that's
the
for
service,
sure.
but was falling apart when it was trying to get down to the server. So I couldn't summon him out of the situation. And then on top of that, I went there and I was like, I was trying to just tell people with good heartedness, I'm like thinking, okay, these are all people that have paid good money to be a part of, a long alpha process where they're going to get their, their feedback implemented. And, we're going to be working with these testers. Surely if I am passionately implore them, hey,
You would hope
don't
so,
grief this
but
player, whether
no.
they're a streamer or not really doesn't matter. Don't grief this player off of playing the game.
Oh, yeah.
Because no game can exist if that's your first
Yeah.
time user experience.
Yeah, it's just
and
total
you're
garbage.
missing
It's
the
absolute
components
shit.
to protect those players. So I started sending out messaging that was just like, stop attacking the bald one. So my perspective on this
The
is
bald
that,
one.
Funniest way to do it, dude.
PvP is good. Griefing is bad. Griefing is an actionable
Okay.
offense. What's the
Yeah.
difference between PvP and griefing?
There we
Use
go.
your common sense. It's
Yep.
as good as that. I saw on Reddit,
Yep.
these false dichotomies
Oh,
of,
Reddit.
well, if I can't grief, then there shouldn't be any PvP. And to be honest with you, that's bullshit. And I
Yep.
also saw one person say to me, hey, I
Imagine
played
that
those old
bullshit
school
from
games,
Reddit.
and all we ever did was run around the newbie zone and kill people. And I'm like, excuse me, I played those old school games and I didn't do that. So you shouldn't do that. And that's how you kill games.
Yeah.
So I have said many times
Yeah,
in the
don't make
past
the game shit.
that our stance on griefing will always be it's an actionable offense. And to be fair, the players that I banned yesterday are players who I gave 3 separate warnings to stop griefing this brand new
And they flipped him
logged-in
off.
player. That is
Basically,
preferential
yeah.
treatment. I
There you
don't
go.
care if it was Asmongold or Joe Schmo off the side of the street. If it's a new player trying to learn the game, you
So look.
going and harassing and killing them.
Good on Steven, good on Intrepid right here, because this is the second time. So the first time that they had to say, hey, the rules are the rules and we're really serious about this was when that Chuckle Nuts decided before the NDA was released that he was going to go ahead and start streaming the game on Twitch. Got himself banned. These people that griefed Asmund after 3 personal warnings from Steven got banned. You have to flex. Like, if you don't come down with the discipline, it's the same thing they were talking about before with the systems where they have to just keep on top of things. If they don't, it's out of control, game dead.
That person for no political motivation, for no opportunity cost, for no scarcity of resources, all the reasons why PvP should exist, you are doing it for opposite of that. You are doing
Yep.
it to harass a person off of the server. By
Yep.
all means, go find a different community. That is not our intent, and
Yep.
you are exploiting our systems.
Yep.
Good. Hell yeah. No, I 100% agree with that.
Clear
That's what I
message.
tell, man. Yeah, so one of the things I always tell people is new players, you have to cultivate them up. You don't want to kill them really early. You need to bring them up so that you can have good fights with them later. Definitely fight them and take all their shit later. That's great.
Yep.
Fantastic. Let them get there first. They're not worth anything
Yep.
at level 1. Doesn't make any sense.
Let them walk before you knock them down.
Yeah, you want good fights. And it was the same thing at Eve. It was always the thing where, like, there was like a code of honor thing where if you blew someone up and it was like a new player, you'd usually be like, hey, man, here's a ship again. Get out there and go fight. Sorry about that. There's your first ship exploded. Here you go. It was a very common thing in Eve. Eve can be a cutthroat bastard of a game to people, but a lot of people would do that for new players because you knew if that guy sticks around, you might be able to fight him later in a big fight.
I played like 2 hours at
You might
Eve.
fight him in
I mean,
small
I mean,
game
that-
PvP,
I mean,
you know.
MMOs live and die off population. Like the funny thing is, and the sheer irony of it is that the players who were getting their socks off to murdering Asmon or a new player, or who run around newbie zones, as a high level character killing people, like they're only causing themselves a disservice. They enjoy the PvP elements of the game, but by taking those actions, they are reducing the population. That's why, as a company, it's important to make sure those types of actions are bannable offenses. And, it is not the intended experience of the PvP mechanics.
Yeah, no, I like that. And I'm glad you're not pulling your punches on banning people.
Yep.
Like straight up. I think that's one of the biggest missteps that I've seen inside of large scale MMOs is the company goes, oh, we can't ban people because if we ban people, then we won't.
No, you got to
people buying
PP
the
spank
video game."
them.
It's like, no,
You got to
don't
PP
ban
spank them
people
right
for these
away.
actions. Less
That's
people
correct.
will feel good about the game and you will
That's
lose
right.
more players. It's
Yep.
it's one of the worst
Absolutely.
decisions that companies make. They
Absolutely.
want to conserve 5 players and they lose hundreds as a result of it.
That's
Mhm.
right. Yeah.
Banhammer's most important aspect of the game, 100%.
Banhammer!
I agree with that. It's no tolerance for exploiting, no tolerance for griefing, like basic stuff, right? That very, very important. So I'm glad that's off to the right start for me. Here's a kind of a miscellaneous one. What is the drop system intention behind drop chance when you're like, why is it reduced when you're killing higher level enemies? Because we ran into a situation today. We went to the Tower of Carfen. We went all the way up the tower. And we stopped getting any loot at all once we got to enemies that were about 3 to 4 levels higher than us. And I mean at all. We killed dozens and dozens.
That's a bug.
Okay,
Unfortunately.
good.
We did do some changes to our experience curves, both the diminishing return on party size, because what we saw last weekend and the weekend prior.
And I hope they do more changes because, like, I went to, Steel Bloom with, a bunch of guys that are way above my level. At the time, I was just level 5 Ranger. I did not expect to get a lot of experience, but all I got was experience debt from dying the 3 to 4 times that I died. But I got 0 experience. And like I said, I should not get a lot, but I should be able to have the chance to get a little bit of experience. And I should be able to get gear. I was able to get gear. So that part seemed to work for me. But what he's talking about sounds like it's obviously what Steven said. It's bug.
Was that there was nothing stopping players from just getting into a raid and having essentially a
items.
faster. Say again.
I meant gear, like drop items, not XP.
No, yeah, no.
Oh,
but
okay.
what we did was we tuned the experience curve to adjust
Way too far.
to adjust the raid size so that we brought players back down to intended encounter design, which is group size for those areas. And instead, the tuning that we did for the XP curve all relates to a single system, which is our reward tables.
Oh,
And
no.
Choked it.
reward tables include drop chances for items as well as experience gained. So that's a bug that needs to get fixed this week, essentially.
Enjoy splitting those tables. It's gonna be rough.
No. We can just apply a modifier to the experience side of the table, but
Oh, that's good then.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really good. Yeah, I'm glad that's an easy fix because we went in there and we're like, I'm not getting anything anymore. We also ran into a really interesting one today too, where we got 5 players together and we killed a monster. Monster's level 20. We're all about level 19. We killed that monster. Everything was fine. We switched one of the players out for level 22, and it dropped their total amount of experience dramatically. Even though we still had 5 players, because they were 2 levels higher than the monster and 3 levels in disparity from us, I think it triggered the power leveling system, and we went from 7K on a kill to 4K on a kill. So I'm wondering what is the reasoning behind this? What are you guys trying to tune?
So the idea there is that when you add a higher level party member, 2 things happen. One, you're adding an additional divisible component, right? This is a new player, right? You're dividing it by 4 instead of 5.
Oh, we kept the group size the same between the 2.
Oh, okay. So the group size was the same.
Yeah.
So that's probably an overtuning on the distribution.
Yeah, it is
of the
overtuned, I
experience.
think,
So
which is
basically
fine.
what
That's
happens
just a
is
dial.
the
Who
experience
cares?
comes in. It gets divided based off of player level because player level is the best indicator of contribution towards killing of the monster. So the higher
Divided by player level, but that still shouldn't be 0, which I think is just a glitch. And hopefully we see that fixed this next time. I don't need to piggyback and level up my character, but it was fun to go into some of these more dangerous areas. It's kind of like going into the hood with Big Brother that works out and takes roids, right? I'm still there. I'm still enjoying some risk and some reward, but yeah, it's overtuned. I'm not going to bitch about it anymore.
level should have gotten a slightly higher distribution of experience from that split up. That is intended, but whether or not it's tuned accurately is something we'll need to inspect.
They'll fix
Okay.
it. They'll fix it.
That
Yeah.
players who are following aren't getting repeat kind of questions, but I enjoy getting back to some of the basics for your community because obviously this is very new. The game is very new for your community.
Yeah.
So I'm digging deep in kind of old design territory, whereas normally within our
I didn't know about Thor and Pirate Software. I really didn't, because I'm in my own bubbles, and I really respect the way he is treating Ash as a creation compared to some other quote big streamers. Dude really is gonna love. I think he's in love with the game and cares about it, and is a good vessel for exposing the game to more people.
our core community, I'm answering very, very nuanced questions.
Very
about
specific and on the fringe, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Chat wants to know, do you wear wigs?
Do I wear wigs?
Yeah.
Like hair wigs?
And if you don't wear wigs, when will you wear wigs? Have you worn wigs?
I have worn
Extra
a wig.
life.
I was for Halloween. I wore a wig. I was Donald Trump.
There you go. Oh, the Donald.
A big giant wig.
That's outrageous.
Oh my
So
God,
funny.
I did not know you did that, Steven.
Totally outrageous.
Oh, no.
It was actually quite funny because the wig was terrible. And anytime I would talk, the hair would just flash up and down.
Oh,
Chad's got
shit.
this whole thing with me. If I win the Streamer Awards this year, I have to go on stage with a wig. So I'm looking forward to that.
How are you going to wear a wig, bro? You got all that hair.
What kind of wig were we talking?
I was thinking about a gigantic, like a big one of those
Big
big
fro.
rainbow afros.
Yes.
Go all out.
Yes,
yeah.
rainbow afro all the way. If you're going to go wig, you got to go rainbow
I'd have to get
afro.
like a massive wig, you know?
You got to get one that goes to the floor.
Yeah, just the
Oh,
huge
my.
wig, dude.
With a train.
Like a cousin it wig.
Dude, I could. All right, so Chad has actually reported something interesting with regional distribution. They reported that Austria is not an available country to select when making an account. Is this intentional? And if so, is there any chance that this can be changed?
There is definitely a chance that can be changed. It's probably not intentional. So I'll have to check with the web team on that.
Very cool. Awesome. Yeah, it came up a lot.
Uh-oh,
Why
somebody's in
is my
trouble.
country not here? Why don't I exist?
That's unfortunate. We have an Austrian producer. He would be very sad to hear that.
Well, let him know he can't play the game anymore.
You're not allowed. No play. This is Verra.
Oh, it's very funny. So we know that there's going to be wipes. Are you guys planning on doing any wipes soon? Can you talk about
Here
the
it
wiping
is.
sort of idea that you have around the game? Is this something you want to do when you want people to go test the early game again, or when new areas come out? Like, is there a strategy to this you're willing to disclose?
Obviously we were trying not to wipe during phase one. I think we're going to be good on that front. We saw
That you're willing to disclose. The man knew the question he was asking.
some database issues over this weekend that was probably affecting anywhere from 1% to 2% of users. So we didn't feel it was necessary to try to correct that at this stage, given the level of frequency. When it comes to wiping, our intent is for December 20th to be a full wipe day.
Nice.
The desire, obviously, to wipe is that we're making balance changes.
Which was the whole idea. Like, I think I'm still going to stay Ranger or Rogue Ranger, Ranger Rogue or Rogue Ranger. But I think I need to, before the 20th, scratch the itch of Mage. And just like, even if I only go up to level 3, level 4 on it, just play around with it a little bit, see if I like it.
Content changes. We're introducing new things in the early leveling process based off of the data that we've collected, both from these last several weeks of player testing on the non-fresh start servers. We're getting a look at some of those changes on the fresh start servers. But come December 20th,
Nice, ranking in there number 8.
Amount
All right.
of changes
Good job.
having been brought up from our dev branch and QA branches, which we will want to see tested. So that is the scheduled wipe date.
Okay, that's awesome. Yeah, no, I'm actually really happy about that because I think there's going to bring in so many new players. There's going to be so many new systems, and that kind of an approach right then makes the most sense to me. So that's great. I'm actually looking forward to a wipe on this because I've got.
We might make that a little smaller for right now.
And like, I don't want to change off the mage because I'm like, I could just get more stuff on the mage.
Yeah.
I just hit level 20 today, and I'm like,
God damn, level 20.
Like, absolutely going for that. It's been a lot of fun. So something that's kind of interesting for me is, what is your guys' intention for kind of looting for characters? Because one of the things we've run into a problem of is you generally think of a mage as wearing light armor. You generally think of, say, a ranger wearing medium armor. You think of a tank as wearing heavy armor, or a fighter wearing heavy armor.
Right.
I noticed that a lot of the statistics on this gear doesn't quite line up. Like, I ended up wearing gear that visually makes me look like kind of a cleric, but it's also very good for mages. But one of the set bonus pieces, set tier 7, actually gave me healing power, which is useless for me, but the rest of it is very good for a mage. So where's the kind of intention here? Am I supposed to wear 5 pieces of light and 3 pieces of medium to get like kind of multi-track drifting on that?
I mean, that's part of kind of the more horizontal player
Fluid
agency choice, right?
More fluid.
Obviously, we have this, holy trinity design of our archetypes and our classes, but part of what makes it possible for you to hybridize or flirt with those role lines, but also not just flirt with them, but react to the encounter design that you're facing, is a bit of agency over the types of gear that you're wearing. Now, right now, the artisanship system, even though there's a lot to it currently, is still very much in its infancy. There's a lot of placeholder stuff. There's a lot of placeholder interactions. We're going to be tuning that as we continue forward and introduce additional systems. But really, the drop scenarios that you're talking about are kind of hit or miss on what your intent is. And the economy through artisanship is really intended to provide that more granular choice making for the player. But the intent essentially behind what type of gear you should have is entirely dependent on the type of challenge rating you're going up against.
Yeah.
In a PvP scenario, it's a little bit more difficult to obviously control the types of damages that you're going to take or the offensive needs and capabilities that you have. So it's important on a gear grind front that you have potentially multiple options at your disposal depending on the encounter and the PvP that you're going into. From a PvE perspective, part of
that's going to be the thing when we have node wars. Like, what are you wearing to the war, son? Like, what are you dressing up with?
Ashes of Creation's unique design is a very dynamic world where these spawners for monsters and dungeons can change depending on what types of story arc decisions are made, what type of narrative structure.
I'm telling you, that adaptive stuff is going to throw a lot of people off.
Advance to what levels and
so
under what cultural influence. So everything is kind of tied together to be changing throughout your experience, and going into a PvE encounter or situation, you should have some cognizance over the type of incoming damage you'll be taking, which set type mitigates that best, your skill composition and choices that you've made, and what elements of the gear bonuses you want to emphasize.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. One of the things I was looking at is I can get 5 pieces of light with as much int as possible because I'm a mage, right? And then get 3 pieces of medium, and the 3-piece set for medium is actually bonus crit chance for baseline crits. So now I'm just, stacking damage on the other side, and I get a little bit more defensive out of it. So I'm glad that that's kind of the intention, because we were trying to figure it out. We're like, this whole set bonus looks cool together, but now what? That I think the other thing too is visually, my character now looks like a magical hobo, right? Which is generally the thing that ends up happening. Is there any plans for like transmogging outside of cosmetics? Can I change my character to look the way I want to? I think the baseline for this is World of Warcraft does this phenomenally. Any item that you pick up, you get the skin for that item, and you can go and mix and match and make yourself look beautiful. What are your plans around transmogrification for the character?
Yeah, we have a very extensive GDD on transmogging and the ability to customize your visual appearance of sets, and in order to still maintain the player threat assessment capabilities, we intend to provide a buff that lives on a targeting plate should you be targeted by an opponent, that indicates to them kind of gear type composition, but not necessarily what gear specifically is.
That's going to be interesting to see how that works.
Healthy and interactive transmog system. I think WoW does a great job with that. We will have something similarly robust.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised by the number of people in chat that don't like this, which is very interesting. I think that one of the problems that I see in PvP many of the times is when you have a transmog system, you don't know what kind of armor the person is wearing when you have so many armor classifications. But if they have a system in place where it's going to show if you're wearing light, medium, or heavy when you click on that person, when you have them targeted, I think that makes the most sense. Like, transmog is really cool because, to be honest with you, I like having transmog sets where I can just go show it off, or we can do tournaments and things where you're like, hey, everybody's going to go do this. You're not a fan, to be honest? That makes sense. I'm interested where the drawdown is, though. Yeah, someone's saying transmog bad, but why?
I think that players tend to look at transmog as an additional layer of obfuscation for you as a player in PvP to understand who and what you're going up against. And that is why, from a design perspective, I've included this concept of essentially gear composition buff that players, when selecting a target, can see they're wearing 3 pieces of light and 5 pieces of heavy. That gives you an indicator of at least their kind of damage mitigation stat against what types of incoming damage power. So I think that to a degree kind of counters the concern around transmog, but still allows for players to leverage that cosmetic kind of flair and customization option, which is what obviously transmog is intending to deliver on.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that, and I think that's kind of the main thing. Is I usually see people being very upset about that being in PvP, and if you guys have a mitigation strategy for that, it makes a ton of sense. And
there is an additional mitigation, by the way. We also have a basic appearance mode that we're intending to deliver on for high player count battles. So when you enter into a siege environment, when you enter into a PvP event, you are then able to utilize the default player appearance perspective, which removes cosmetics and removes specific gear visuals.
That's going to be less of a load on everybody's
for
stuff.
Each armor type, whether it be cloth, plate, or leather. This obviously cuts down on the rendering performance issues that can occur in high density battles. That we want to allow for, and allows players to have.
Yeah, you got to cut all the fluff when we're going to war, boys.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's really, really good, actually. So something that came up in chat that's actually PvP related is kind of interesting. We saw the same kind of behavior in EVE. It's very common. You have one group come in, PvP a guy, and another guy come in and steal the loot because that guy is not flagged for PvP. He doesn't get attacked by Concord, which is like the space police, right? So you can kill people in protected areas with the one PvP group, and then the one guy steals everything. Is there any intention at all or planning to stop someone from doing
the Verra police?
Because right now you can do that. You can have that guy go and loot everything. He doesn't get flagged for PvP, and he can make out scot-free, and you get corruption for attacking him, even though he technically engaged.
There is a whole suite of features that are still outstanding when it comes to player loot piles and the bag system. First and foremost, when we talk about different types of bags that you can take, these are bags that relate to your material inventory. Obviously, as we know, having played the game, the intent behind player looting is that you drop a portion of your materials, not completed items, unless of course you're corrupt, and then players can loot those materials. There is intended to be bag progression and bag arcs that have different types of stats associated with them. One of those stats is interaction stat, which determines the amount of time it takes to open a bag on a loot pile that was a player. So you can dial.
I am glad that Euphorix, did you talk me into watching this video? Because like I caught some key pieces of it that had the December 20th information, but there's so much here. This is a really, really good video.
Up a certain type of bag and equipment.
Thank you.
That requires much longer time to interact with. In addition, we have the concept of introducing flagging as a part
It is
looting
good.
a body that is not a member.
I got to
of
do
your,
some chord control under here.
Raid, party, or guild. And if you do loot that body successfully after the required time, you will be flagged, and then can become a valid target in PvP. So again, it's just important to note.
Is it Alt F to flag? Because I've done zero PvP.
A disservice.
I think I've accidentally flagged once.
Visually looks like it has some polish to it, and that it has some pretty competent and core gameplay loops that are interactable with during alpha. But we are still very much an alpha.
I'm going to try a little PvP this weekend.
So a lot of these systems,
a little consensual touching, if you will,
are still not yet online. And obviously that's the benefit of doing these types of Q&As.
Oh, 4 times. Oh, hell yeah. It's dense.
I'm interested in seeing how the bag thing works.
But that's the way it works, right? That's the way it works. It's funny you say that because, I think it was Vladis. It was one of these guys that went back and he's like, Steven told us all along. It was either Vladis or it was Nice Gaming that went back and looked at one of his videos. It's like, Steven told us about this little nugget all along, just blurted it out in conversation. And we had no idea what he was talking about. There's so much gold here. It's got to be mined. It's got to be mined like Bitcoin, baby.
Bags are in kind of a weird spot, but it's early alpha. Like that stuff gets changed out later. You get balanced stuff and everything like that. So I was like, well, that's weird. I'm going to wait on that, right? But I do find it very compelling to flag someone for PvP when they loot something, even if it's 30 seconds a minute. Because then you got to be like, I don't know if maybe they're not, you know. Right. And that adds a little bit of risk to it. And you got to think about it. You're like, do I want to steal that from that dude? And it also lets me set up traps.
Right, know? Exactly.
Oh, I'll set up traps,
and
baby.
To be clear, I know some people I saw were asking, do you still have to spend that time to interact with your own loot pile? And the answer is no. You would evade any of that time constraint in interacting with your own loot pile.
I like that. Yeah, I really like that. That was one of the things that's really weird is when you go to interact with your loot pile, you do the whole animation, you stand up, and then you get the UI. And I was like, God, I just want to pick up my stuff. Like it's my stuff, you know, like,
yes.
Oh, is there anything that you guys have planned to show you which loot pile is yours? That led to a lot of confusion among players where I was like, what? And then I loot it and it shows that none of them are stolen. Then I take it and I'm like, it's all stolen now.
Yeah, probably the two biggest things that are very much work in progress in the game is our UI and obviously the art when it comes to, destroying certain destruction and polish around the environments. But UI is very much one of those things. We do intend to have a specific call out for your own loot pile so that it's easily recognizable, as well as a mini-map indicator of the location of your loot pile as well for you.
Okay, perfect. One of the ones that gets talked about a lot.
Luckily, I haven't had like giant piles of loot I was worried about, but there have been a few times where my camera stopped working after I died. Like I couldn't move the camera. You could only get like maybe 10 to 15 degrees of movement. So I had to log out, come back in, and then my stuff was gone. And I'm pretty sure they addressed that at one point where they said they're going to fix that. But I didn't have a lot of stuff to lose.
Font size is not scalable right now.
Yes.
Even I
fix the font.
What does that say? Right? Because like it's in the bottom left. It's a little tiny thing,
I just
that's me, 40-inch TV, and I'm like,
about that this last week. Obviously, you can press the backslash button to kind of scale individual HUD elements.
Backslash.
But of course, that also scales the graphical component as well. There is an intent to provide the feature to scale the font in the future. When that comes online is probably not going to be until I would say phase 3.
Wow.
But for now, I just had a sweeping change. I'm not sure if it's in this build or if it's down in our QA branch and will come up next week. but it will just overall increase font size across the board.
Nice. And they're talking about
I think we're all going to become very familiar of the different layers of ashes, right? Like, I don't know which layer it's down in. Is it in the QA branch? You know, like there's so much cooking going on right now. Let's see if we can snooze this upcoming ad. Boom. We pushed it back. It's 9 minutes out.
for cursor size as well, because that's a big accessibility thing. One of the things I brought up pretty early on was you guys have, and this is wild to see this in an alpha, fully modifiable UI. Everything is movable.
It is kick-ass.
And also,
so kick-ass.
And I haven't really seen this before, recolorable everything.
Yep, I remember this part of the conversation. It's good. Be right back.
Classes and things like that. And a lot of people don't realize how big of a deal this is for people with different types of color blindness. Is usually you set up like Deuteronope and like all these different types of color blindness settings, and they're locked into those. But giving them the ability to change colors across anything and all of those colors they can set themselves means that there's no having to fit into one of those, which is awesome.
I'm a big proponent of that, myself being personally green and red colorblind. It is an important aspect of accessibility, I think, that a lot of gamers, have to struggle with from a options perspective. That was a high priority to begin with, obviously. But as I said, there's a lot of stuff still to get done on the UI side.
It's funny, our artist is red-green colorblind as well. Same exact thing. And we built all the color accessibility into our games that way, where like it's just built into the game. They're like, where's the options? It was like, it's already built in. Every environment is structured to make that work. Yeah. Make poison purple.
There we go. That's not so big. That's good.
Poison on ground. That's actually a good point. We were fighting in a lot of grassy areas, and because the poison on the ground is green and the grass is green, the only way I knew I was standing in it was because I have a big red X on my back going, you can't be healed.
Yeah, obviously there's a lot of stuff to do still on the VFX side as well. We have a great VFX team, but certain features, whether it be like, some highlights or Fresnels or, different components that just kind of help make the visuals
tweaks
pop without contributing to kind of the visual soup and noise that can occur sometimes in large battles. That's something that is, I think, a level of polish that comes a bit later. After we,
and if I'm not mistaken, in one of the live streams they talked about, this is a little off topic, but like when we went in on that little raid, there's so much animation going on that you can't even tell where the enemy's at. It's like, it's a good thing that I can just target them with a button because I have no idea what the hell's going on. I know that I know in my heart of hearts they talked about being able to lower that threshold for the amount of animation going on because it just becomes animation soup at some point. But I don't expect that in Alpha 1. Yeah. I think that's going to be very tunable on your own end. You think there's a setting now? Okay. That's quite possible because you're also talking to the guy that couldn't figure out how to set his keybind for attack in action cam, and it was right below the line I was staring at. So yeah, quite possible.
Get through, obviously the initial implementation.
I'll need to check that
for the NPCs and the player characters.
Okay, so here's going to be kind of a hard hitting one.
There's
a lot of people, and I've talked about this quite a bit with the alpha access cost. It's $120, and a lot of people are really upset about that.
I don't think it's a deal.
I explained it to them is it's not just access to the alpha. It's about a year, maybe a year and a half or more of content for all of alpha, phase 1, 2, and 3, beta 1 and 2, a month of game time when it comes out. How do you feel about this? Because I know that wasn't the original offering and you guys changed it. So can you tell me a little bit about that process, the feedback that you received, how you felt, and why it changed?
Yeah, for sure. How do we arrive at what that cost is?
I'll tell you right now that I bought in for just phase 1 access. I believe that's what it was when I bought in. And I only expected that. And when they added all that extra stuff to my account, I was like a little kid at Christmas. I was so happy. And yeah, I don't think that's the worst take at all. I think that's some people, and I think it's a bullshit take. I'll just say it's a bullshit take. You're talking about a game that's going to be a $15 a month subscription, and you're talking about multiple years possibly of buying in. Yeah, he had to ask it for sure. You're talking about buying in for multiple years. So $120, let's say it's 2 years of alpha and the beta testing altogether. Most conservative take is most people's like last quarter, 26 maybe, right, that we have release. So let's just, for argument's sake, let's say it's 2 years. That's $300 it's $300 plus of monthly sub price for 120. It's whatever the hell. Like, I've done too much math today. Don't make me do this. Hold on. It is a thing, and he had to bring it up. I get why he brought it up, but yeah, $360. That's what I thought for 100. So you're getting it a third of the cost, a third of the damn cost. Like, get over it. People don't ask this question anymore. It's a stupid question. There are stupid questions in life. At some point, a question does become stupid. Again, that's not directed at Thor. It's directed at the people he had to ask the question for. Oh, shit. I meant to snooze. Hold on. Let's snooze these ads that are coming up. I'm only got one more snooze, boys. We're going to have to deal with it.
Allowing for an environment that is capable of holding, over 100,000 concurrent players is a far different cost profile than having an environment that is only holding 20 or 30,000. And then especially when you compound that with the length of time that we expect Alpha 2 to run, which is at least a year's worth of time.
I think
this is something that we want to accommodate the players who are willing and able and want to provide the testing side of this and the feedback to join us in that process, but we also need to be cognizant of the cost because we don't have a public.
Hey, I totally get it. So $500, I wanted to, and when I was about to, we had the money. You know how life is, though. It would have put us, like, it's just the way life is. Sometimes $500 isn't a lot. Sometimes $500 is an unclimbable mountain. And it just became that, where I wasn't going to do that. Even though I really, in my heart of hearts, wanted to do it, I wasn't going to do it. She would have done it, whatever. I get it. You bought in, you paid that extra price, and that's freaking cool. Yeah, I bet.
Publisher. We don't have a board of investors.
Oh, god damn, a 2K car repair? Exactly my point.
This is a personal endeavor of my own.
I'm sorry to hear that.
In order
That's the life train, right?
Sure that we are providing players an opportunity to participate in that. We came.
But all that being said, Euphorics, I feel amazing about $120 buy-in that got upgraded to all this play. Yeah, exactly. And the FOMO was always in our own minds. I don't think that they fostered the FOMO at all.
Analysis of what it takes to achieve the levels
of
players that we're going to potentially see from an interest perspective. So when we initially announced that, obviously we saw the pushback that we got from the broader community, which, obviously I'm very much in tune and watching what players.
Steven is always watching.
Is. So that's when I decided to go back and say, essentially that it includes all of the betas. And it was always intending really to include the betas. It was just going to be on a separate PTR realm. So it was still going to have the same content, but I wanted to preserve the beta players being on their own servers rather than allowing the Alpha 2 participants to kind of switch over to the beta servers as well. But we articulated that a little bit better, that it includes beta 1 and beta 2 as well.
Good clarification.
And I included a month of game time and some cosmetic currency that I felt, would better be received by the player base. But ultimately, it does come down to, what does it cost to service our DevOps and LiveOps teams and all the server.
It's one thing I love about Steven is in Intrepid. They take decisive action. They're not afraid to say no to some things, but when they know that something needs to be fixed, they take decisive action.
Responsible management of the project's purview.
Yeah, no, I'm actually really happy with it because I think one of the things is when it did come out and it was like only alpha, I agreed. I was like, yeah, that doesn't seem like really good value. And immediately you guys turned around, you added beta, you added a month of game time, you had the $15 of currency, and I was like, you know what, that makes sense now. And now it's down to that. It moved away from I don't know about that to now it's a subjective experience. Is this good value for me? Do I feel invested enough in this game? And I always tell people this. If you don't feel like it's good value, don't.
No more snoozes, boys. 5 minutes ad start.
You should be buying something that you feel is good for you, makes sense for you, and you're not being pressured into getting it, right? That's how that should always go.
And I think there is
no pressure.
Also with how we approach the Alpha 2 access. I'm not spending money on advertising. I'm not spending money on marketing. I'm not taking content
Yep.
creators or streamers and paying them to play the game and get the vision.
Yeah, their open development that they have taken so much shit for is a masterclass in how to do grassroots marketing. Like, look at all the content creators that don't get paid that are enthusiastic about this product. It's crazy. Yep, don't need your money. We want people to take this. Yep, exactly.
Of the game out. That's not the intended phase right now. We're not in a marketing phase. So this is really something that players who want to, or testers who want to come and be a part of that process, they have an option to
He
do
called
so.
him while he's
And those
driving to
who don't,
Vegas.
I've
Okay.
released the visual NDA. You can watch others play it and you can still provide feedback in what you're seeing. That's, in my mind, that's kind of the best of both worlds. It also ensures that there is some level of responsibility because the testers who are participating have made an investment.
He's always been willing to reach out to
that
people.
having that access. And
Yep.
so there, hopefully the bar of responsibility.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned that because there's a certain content creator that I don't care to listen to his material, watch his material anymore whatsoever, that really went off some mental cliffs a little bit. And Steven reached out, I believe, and said, hey, let's talk about it. And the guy said no. So, like, Steven's never really shut the door on anybody, but there are other people that have taken the approach that they think that if they shit on Ashes, it's going to get them more viewers. Or if they get artificially neutral. I've seen that from a few people that I do like listening to, that if they get artificially neutral, like they're trying to be this objective reporter, which is a bullshit take to ever have. Nobody is objective, that they're going to garner more views. Be who you are, ask the real questions you have, and have the takes you have. Yeah.
That's raised when that is the barrier of entry, that they're going to be willing to put up with the bugs and the crashes, and they're going to give their honest opinion and put in bug.
Oh my God! You first 2-week alpha testers, alpha 2 testers,
the game during this phase.
The queues.
Now, that is also an element of this, but I agree with you. Anybody who doesn't want to participate in purchasing alpha access,
then don't do it.
Do that. Like, it is not a requirement. I tell people actively, do not purchase alpha if you're looking to play a game. This is not yet a game. You might find fun here and there.
Yeah, I saw that.
Great. It gives
it
us
looked
painful on the
painful.
core loops, but we're nowhere.
By the time we got in on November 8th, though, I never had a problem. Like, not one problem.
Literally,
I had a couple of crashes.
Environment. And a lot of people over the years, for MMORPGs specifically,
that's a fast fix rate right there.
A fictitious taste in their mouth of what the term alpha means.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the alphas that you experience as
Steven put the alpha taste back in your mouth. This is what it means, boys.
as a player are really just port overs from Eastern publishers.
That's crazy how quick they did that.
American and European.
It's crazy how quick they addressed the DDoS attack on that first Sunday.
And they call it an alpha in order, as a marketing gimmick, to get higher box prices for players to come and play the game during that phase. It's kind of like an early access gimmick. And
everybody knows early access is a mess right now.
What alphas are, which is more represented by the phase we're in.
Yeah, no, it's funny because I've been telling our players that the whole time, man. Everybody in the community, I'm like, this is what a real alpha is, and they're like, oh, it's all broken. I was like, yes.
Yes.
It's kind of the whole point, right? Is you break it right now so that when the game is finished, it's in a good spot.
I'm really getting to like Thor a lot.
What the word alpha means and what the word beta means, because you get all these games come out and it's like, oh, we're in alpha for how long? 5 days. It's like,
the fuck you are.
What are you gonna do in 5 days?
Nothing. Well, we're gonna do one bug fix.
It'll be my God, yes.
Ridiculous, right. Dude.
Yeah, the bug report. Absolutely. So I asked somebody, I'm like, how do you do a bug report? And they typed !/bug. And I'm like, I'm typing that. I'm like, it's not working. They're like, yeah, the period so that I could actually type it to you. I'm like, oh, yes, I am a moron. Thank you. Yeah, having that in the menu is going to be amazing.
Yeah, it's insane. Yeah.
Totally
all right, we're in an ad break. Shit. Sorry about that.
It's good to see that for me. It's honestly good to see that. Oh, yeah, here's something kind of interesting. Because we don't have quests right now, and we only have grinding in the open world, How do you
Yeah.
feel about time invested per level gained by the player? Because the way that I felt about it so far is it is quite long, and that's not for everyone. But I do feel very positively when I gain that level. But I
Yeah.
can't understand from the other perspective of like somebody doesn't have a huge amount of time. What does that feel like for them? And like, dude, I've got a lot of time to play
Yeah,
a video game. Right?
that's a super fair assessment of the current leveling experience.
Yep.
I want it to take a long time
Probably
to level.
our most completed core loop is the combat experience,
Yeah.
engaging with the archetype, the fighting with monsters and encounters. Like that is, I believe, right now our most compelling, indicative, full feature focus of a gameplay loop. So what we're missing during phase one, and we fully knew this, and we tried to express this outwardly, are those narrative components, are the artisanship progression paths, and they are the social organizations and the religions, like all of these separate progression paths that give you adventuring experience when you do
Yep.
them as well, but also have the power to influence the world in ways equal to or
Okay, so I totally get what he's saying here right now, and I love that there's all these other paths to compound your experience, but I still want the upper levels to take more time. I am so sorry that we're in ads right now, but I want that to take more time.
or in some cases greater than what adventuring leveling does. So right now it feels a bit a bit overtuned towards like monster grinding.
The number
And
of
that
level 50
content
players
yet
in the
is
game should be far
isn't
and few
yet in the
between.
game, and that's what phase two and phase three are going to represent. So I would agree with you. Right now it feels a bit heavy-handed, and we could make some simple curve adjustments to faster level players in order to experience something different. And to be honest with you, we do that on our PTR right now.
It's interesting you're saying that, Euphorics, because I've seen a lot of people, Jamie Chaos, my guild leader specifically, that have said that. Like, everybody's so focused on level, and it's easy to get focused on that. But it's the gear that matters, because you can come up and pee-pee spank somebody really hard if you have the right gear. And once we have guild banks and all that other, oh my God, is it going to get special, baby?
Which is just accessible by Alpha 1 participants. So, in our PTR, when we do
There we
testing
are. We're
during
back
week,
from
we
the
test
ads. I
every day,
apologize.
and we have,
We got another
some
26
several
minutes before we have to deal
Alpha
with that.
1 participants, usually concurrently on a single server, helping us to test in PTR. We will toggle max level, give everybody max level, and we will give them gear and gold, and we will say, go test these things. Here's our hit list of like, fixes that we put in this build. Please make sure you hammer these hard. Like that's the intent.
They've been
there.
very specific in
But
PTR
it
from
is
what I hear
not
about.
something
Hey,
we
go
want to
here,
bring
do
over
this.
into the Alpha 2 testing environment, because this is really intended to be more of a soak than what those highly targeted PTR tests are. And so we want players to spend additional longer time moving through the leveling process so that we have an opportunity to collect more granular data and to address bugs that might be hard to find from our internal QA teams.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, I'm super happy with that, man. Like I like the leveling experience right now, but I can understand it'd be too grindy for a lot of people. I play grindy games, and so this kind of a thing is totally fine.
Yeah, I'm used to
Having alternate
survival
routes for
games.
that just makes sense. Like any type of questing systems or things like that where people can come in and
Quests are
actually
less
get some
desirable to
progression.
me.
Because I feel like a game like this would be great with that core audience, but it will hemorrhage the more casual player if there's no other.
Oh, exactly. You're right.
So
You're forks.
I'm really glad.
And that is definitely why those alternate progression paths, again, have equal to potentially higher relevance in impacting the game, is because they also have varying levels of time investment required to progress.
So he's kind of on the peripheral adjusting the post that I made in the forums about, and I was halfway joking with the title of this, but I said XP for miles traveled. And there should be, and there will be, I have zero doubt, there will be ways to get experience by traveling the world and being that person that's willing to put in the hours of travel to distant lands. And it may not be a direct, like, oh, you walked this many steps, you get this many XP. It may be that you have the interaction with a whole bunch of other things that allows you to profit from it, whether that be experience and leveling or it be wealth or power. I mean, when it comes down to it, really, Ashes of Creation is a stage at which you could definitely demonstrate the 48 laws of power, right? Treasure maps alone will be hundreds of hours of content. Absolutely. There are so many nooks and crannies. When I went into the desert and I got past those two little scarabs in the canyon. Oh my God, I was scared. I got trapped in that canyon. I was like, oh, I'm so screwed. When they get the reactivity of NPCs down, I would have been dead. But I went all through that desert. I still didn't explore everything. There's going to be so much to do and find in this map. It's going to be insane. And I don't care how many stupid guides get put out or, and this isn't a shot at them, but like Ashes Codex and all that, when they make it dynamic, it's going to be, it's going to be a games within games within games.
There. But I will say, not to conflate the issue. We will be
nodes
on the
defeat gods
side of what probably most modern MMO players are.
It's good to have a guide for sweat of your brow. Like, here's how I get my horse and get moving, right?
Approach,
but after that,
which you will find many callbacks in, the design for Ashes.
Yeah, no, I'm really happy about that, man, because like.
I don't want guides to be a thing because in the YouTube world of things, like that just, oh my God, it just soaks the marrow out of the game. You should at least bare minimum have to party up with some people that walk you through it.
MMO. When I go play World of Warcraft retail, I don't feel like leveling is part of the game. I feel like
hey, first time chat sloth getting in on an alpha. The 120 does give me all the access points. Hold on, let me make sure I'm reading this right. Getting in on the alpha, the 120 does that give me all the access points till start. I don't know what you mean by access points, but you're in the alpha testing all the way through till start plus 1 month of gameplay. Maybe you could let me know what you mean by access points.
That's right.
Didn't realize how much I missed, man.
And thank you for the first time chat.
One of the reasons I've just been so into it because of that. So
that is an
okay. Yeah, no, you're in.
Very true, right? Like modern.
At that point, you're all the way in.
I mean, why do MMOs do that today? Obviously, the most important aspect of an MMORPG is the social component, right? There's a reason why it's massively multiplayer, and that's because the elasticity that comes with a social atmosphere is what you want to induct the player to as quickly as possible.
Yeah, PTR testing. But
right, because then your chance.
On that note, with PTR testing, what's been so interesting right now is that they have a visual NDA, but everybody's allowed to talk about the notes and the upgrades that happen during the week. So, okay, Sloth, the difference is the PTR is testing things that, like, we test on the weekend. They find all these things they want to upgrade. They have PTR Realm during the week, which are people that bought in earlier. You can't get in on that now if you weren't already in, like Kickstarter, all the way through all the other things. They fix a whole bunch of stuff on the PTR Realm by doing very specific testing with very dedicated testers. Plus, they have outside testers. They have all these other things going on. And then the next weekend, we see that. Now, I think it's phase 2 where we go into 5-day testing, so I'm not sure if that's going to be more of a rolling fire on how things get rolled out. But, yeah, I don't know. It's going to be interesting.
Chances of keeping that player are much higher. And oftentimes in the legacy MMOs that you're talking about...
thank you for the follow, CC, my life.
It's because that leveling process is devoid of players. There are no new players really in those starting zones, in those starting processes. They want to graduate you as quickly as possible to endgame, where the rest of the player population is.
The end game of Ashes is there's no end game.
However, one of the strengths of Ashes of Creation's design
CC my life.
Our social environment exists around nodes, and the world around the nodes dynamically adjust, not 100% of the spawners, but around 50 to 60% of the spawners to reflect differing.
Is there a usual downtime? Yeah. So right now, what we were promised in phase 1 of Alpha 2 was that it would be up from, and I'm just going to give you my times in Central. Look on Discord. It'll adjust for you. I'll just do the Pacific times because that's what well, no, I'll do my times because it's easier. It actually makes more damn sense. Noon on Friday till midnight on Sunday is what you're promised. I'm in Central Time, so that'll make sense, right? Noon on Friday to midnight on Sunday. But Stephen Sharif, absolute sandal god that he is, oh my God, for Veterans Day, said, there are a lot of veterans that are MMORPG players, and in honor of Veterans Day, we are going to extend testing through Monday, Veterans Day, which made the decision for me to not go to school that day. I could do what I need to do from home. It's light work, right? So I say that because all hail the sandal god, but I say that because I actually think that we'll see it expand more as it suits their needs. I've always said that, as it suits their needs. You think, okay, so thank you for wait a minute. I think you meant to type Friday to Tuesday phase 2, 24/7 phase 3. All praise the Duck Lord Sandal God. Hey, thank you for the first time chat. Oh my goodness, you're going to struggle here. Oh, I can't do it. You're going to have to phonetically spell that for me. But yes, all praise the Duck Lord Sandal God. Yes. So phase 1, Friday to Sunday. Phase 2, Friday to Tuesday. Phase 3, 24/7, baby. We're rolling. And phase 3 is when I hope to have that second PC set up here so that my oldest daughter can play with me. Probably my youngest, too. She's pretty friggin' bright.
Levels of engagement. So even as a new player,
phase 1 until December
zone,
20th.
I'm not thrown into the wastelands of
and December 20th.
Experience. Instead,
we'll just add this just because you're asking the question. December 20th, you see a complete wipe per this conversation that we're watching with Pirate Software. A complete wipe. So the people, I didn't get in until November 8th. There were people in the Alpha 2 experience. We won't talk about PTR, but the Alpha 2 experience 2 weeks before me that had done all kinds of leveling, grinding, figure things out. Phase 2, if you want to get in clean, or even if you got in now and we're expecting it to happen, like phase 2 on December 20th, everything gets wiped. We all start fresh.
It's more likely that nodes, if I'm joining 6 months down the road, the nodes closest to the starting experience are the most booming. And there are environments around me where I get to see higher level players doing things while I am taking my path of the either curated or static, level progression design throughout that process. And I can meet people and I can be a part of these pseudo factions, even if my level disparity is great. That is part of the benefit that Ashes of Creation's dynamic and node-driven world provide.
That is I was going to say hot take, but a hot approach right there is that you keep the starting area alive because those things get built up early. And yes, there'll be a lot of turmoil, a lot of war around some of those, but I could see, I'm just talking out of my south end here, I could see where one of those 5 nodes that we're playing in right now is the metropolis, right? And then has its vassals under there. And why would anybody give up that power? And those resources that are there are going to continue to matter. So I don't think the starting area goes stale.
Us that a lot of legacy modern.
Yes, it is in phase 1 right now. Yes.
So with that in mind, one of the things that I really liked about Eve.
Let me find this link for you here. Hold on.
They can become a part of the economy immediately because there was kind of a base set of materials that you can get from any mining, right? So you can get tritanium, you can get pyrite, you can get these basic materials, and they are used in every craft in the entire video game. And that allowed any player to engage in the system. Does the crafting right now fit that? What is the goal that you guys have for crafting to not leave the new player out of that process?
Absolutely. The entire crafting system is built from the ground up. A lot of times you'll find crafting systems.
Scroll down about halfway on that link right there and you'll see it.
Reach the top and then everything is driven by the top down. That is not how, I have wanted our crafting system to kind of
I don't know that I really can compare it to other games. Obviously, Stephen, ArcH2 fan. I don't have the depth to really
everyone
do
can
that
have
and really
access
feel like I'm talking
to
from my own
contributing to the
experience.
base layer of the foundation that the rest of the artisanship levels are then
I think
predicated
it's
upon.
unique.
You constantly have an importance and or a sink, excuse me, a demand from the economy to continue to receive
Never
those
mind,
resources.
Holgar,
Just
the
to be clear,
Viking
like
AI,
as I
Age of
said,
Conan.
the economy is built foundationally from
Be right back.
the bottom up. And you know, the important thing about the economy to keep in mind, which is probably difficult to experience right now because not a lot of the systems are online yet, but the infancy of them are. It's that resources as they kind of spawn throughout the world, their location can change, which obviously instigates players to move resources
Oh, look at you,
so that they
Euphorix. You
can
ranked
sell
up
them
to an
relevant
inductor
to
invoker.
the
All right,
crafting
all
locations and workbenches that are available in nodes,
right.
and we kind of change those
169
spots.
followers.
But to answer your question, essentially, yes, we are very foundationally ground up perspective from the economy. So you get the most investment from the least level of barrier.
We might make it through this video eventually.
And then they populate and support
Classic
higher
WoW
chains
and
of
Guild Wars 2
crafting.
combat.
No, that's really good.
And the
That's
social
always one of the biggest
experiment.
concerns
Okay.
with crafting systems is like, oh, you're a tier 1 crafter? Well, there's no more economy left for you. The server's on tier 6. You know, that kind of a feeling. And I feel for that, man, because I love crafting systems. I'm super into that. We've actually got in our guild, we've got a whole ministry of acquisition and ministry of production that handle all of the acquiring and using of resources to build stuff. So knowing that we're going to be able to get new players in and they're always going to have something to do, they're always going to be valuable is incredibly good. That's very cool. Please no region lots for ashes. I actually think region locking for servers is a very good idea from a security perspective. The reason why is if you region lock by price, you say you paid the Brazilian price, you play on the Brazilian servers, that means I cannot go make hundreds of accounts, pay the Brazilian price, and then have all those
True
accounts
story.
go and
I agree with that now.
just
I didn't
fund
understand
funds,
it
which is
before, but I
exactly
agree.
what happens if you don't do that.
And just to be clear, the intent isn't to prevent a player in another region from purchasing access to, let's say, North America or Europe if they should so choose, but that in the price harmonization they purchase lower pricing.
Really? I didn't know that. $3,
then
huh?
they are delegated to those region servers. But if they wanted to play in North America or in Europe with their friends or whatever, they could purchase a North American or European subscription.
Yeah,
Because
so
there is a big ass Brazilian guild right now in game, right?
You don't have bypassing of that by going to the region that has the cheapest price. It's generally going to be Brazil, Argentina, stuff like that. That's a very common tactic. We see that all the time. Yeah, normal stuff. Yeah. It's them protecting all the player base from those other regions from this type of bad activity while still giving a good price to players in those regions. So this is one of the things that I saw.
Yeah, it sounds like good business.
Talk about it all the time.
By the way, I know that your community is goblins.
Where did Steven go?
I just would like to introduce you to my friend here.
Oh shit!
Pathfinder goblin.
That is fantastic, dude.
Oh my god, dude!
Put him kind of right back here so he can chill with us.
Goblins. Actual goblins.
The real goblin.
It's actually fantastic, dude. Hell yeah. Yeah, stopping botters from getting the cheapest sub and wrecking the economy.
The regional thing, from what they said earlier, was about bot control.
What kind of content is available?
But you could still buy into North America from there, is what they just said. So
is out there. I think the node system makes it so it's more accessible than it would be, say, in Eve. Like you're not going to be able to go into nullsec sovereign space and go and just farm rats there without getting pushed out. So I think the node system's more inclusive. But what other systems do you guys have in mind? Either ones that are already in the game or ones that are not in the game yet that makes it viable to do solo play, even though the game's not intended for that at all times.
Yeah. I think it's important to note that right now our weakest loop, because it's missing many of the ancillary systems that support it, is not that we
I don't know how that's going to work out yet before
a valid solo experience. Things are easier in a group, things are easier with friends. That is the intended experience. We are an MMO after all. So we are very conscientious to ensure that we are prioritizing group-based content, but we also want to provide a valid path for solo experience as well, because sometimes as a player, I experience this. I just want to go grind or do something on my own for the hour of time that I have and not eat up the 15 to 20 minutes it takes to integrate into a group or whatever, right? So that's something that's going to be bolstered as additional systems come online throughout phase 2 and 3. The solo experience now is the hardest it will ever be, which is okay for this phase. But yes, I mean, to answer your question, obviously, there are different progression paths. We talked about them with the social, the religious organizations, the nodes modes themselves. All the, there are narrative paths that are viable solo paths. There will be hunting grounds in the overworld population that will be soloable more so than what you can experience right now. But you are encouraged to be part of a group perspective, right? You are encouraged to find one of the pseudo factions and to be inducted into this social environment. That is obviously the strength that I
Yeah.
believe MMOs
And
have.
I've done a
That
lot of
sets
solo
us
so
that sets
far, but I've
apart this
joined 2
genre
parties in
from
a
other
raid
genres
also
of
within my
gaming.
guild.
So,
So
we lean into that.
Nice. So here's kind of an off one, like off topic normal one. Since we are doing wipes, and since you've said that the wipe is going to be December 20th, that's a planned wipe. There may be ones before that, maybe just in case. How do we retain our character names between that? This is one that's going to affect me very directly because I'm a high value target of that. I've got an established
I need to know
game,
this.
and if someone snipes that name, am I out of luck? Are there systems in place to protect this? What happens?
So we have in the past with our pack holders provided name reservation mechanics. Those aren't necessarily intended to be implemented, I think, until late into the phase 3. But I know that there was some discussion about it on the web and ICS side of whether or not we could facilitate that a bit sooner. And then it would be
I hope
a
you
field
can.
essentially that you fill out in the back end of your account page for the website that would preserve based on a realm basis. So you would select a realm, you would input your reservation token essentially, and then that space would be reserved after the wipe.
Would you think that it would work if, during the wipe, we just got a level 1 character with no gear with the same name, same archetype, everything?
No, what would happen is upon character creation after the wipe, you would be able to input the reserved name and it would be reserved for your account creation, your account character creation.
I hope they
Okay,
get
that makes
that
sense.
on
Yeah,
this
as long
this
as
first
there's
wipe.
something in place, because I know now that there's streamers getting into it, there's also guild leaders on things. Like, there's so many different names that we can see out in the world, and we know them now. And that's something that's really interesting is even at this alpha
because
phase, I go,
there were a lot of people calling themselves Richie in PTR, so like we already know this is an issue.
that guy's guild. I know these people that are over there, and I know that if that wipes, someone's gonna.
Oh, really, you porks?
Like that's a very tough thing to be. It's a tough thing to face against. And I know that most.
Yeah, I couldn't get the exact name that I wanted, and I was fine with that because there's a guy with a bigger audience that probably took that. But I could get a variation. But now that I'm going with Tangent Scout right now, and then I have the other name that I want to use for a mage, I don't want to lose that, right? Like if you've been streaming, you don't want to lose that.
Mostly affects streamers. I know that is. So it's kind of more of a selfish ask to find out. But I know it's going to affect a lot of different figureheads around the server as well.
Yeah, I don't think that that's just a streamer thing. Like you said, I think that's a guild leader thing. I mean, that's even an individual who's not a guild leader or a streamer that's just has a reputation, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And you want to a degree, allow some tools where people can preserve that reputation and not have.
Because we're going to see the big wipe after betas too.
Narc will be the most wanted name. True, I could see that. That's quite funny.
Not by me.
I'm gonna steal I'm gonna steal Narc's name.
If you threw out his Narc, I think.
Oh shit, he's gonna steal Narc's name. Nice.
Something comes up all the time. This has changed a couple times throughout Alpha. Why did need and greed change from going into your bag to now doing it where you have to go and pick up the item? We're wondering, what happened there? Was there something you guys were trying to combat? Because now when you need it, you still have to go pick it up off the ground, which is a little bit
pain in the ass.
What's the intended design there? Was that a stopgap? Was it a leapfrog thing?
The intended design is twofold. One, on an engineering side, there was some concern about preserving the rights currently based off of net relevancy and distance. So we tried to
I need to turn that
the
other light
time
off.
that you could roll need or greed. And then we also introduced a pause to the public loot rights timer on the loot container, but more so on the design side of it. Part of, I think, the PVX engagement of an environment is not just, let's say, killing the mini boss or killing the boss or killing the creatures, but it is controlling the space after that to the point where you can ensure when that rolling is complete, that you have access to the loot container to claim your reward as well.
Okay.
And that other players could potentially kill
As long
you
as we
during
know
that
what it is,
process
it's fine.
and wait until the loot container goes to a public permission setting. And we were having situations where, players could sit in a node or sit in a town in a raid or in a party.
I can't
and
snooze
be
this ad that's coming
granted,
up in 5
the
minutes, just
reward
FYI.
nowhere near the loot container. So as an interim solution, we incorporated this needing to
You can watch on
interact with the loot
YouTube or
container
X
after
or sub on
successfully,
Twitch.
passing
What
the
I can
roles.
tell you.
And we're going to test with that and see how that goes with certain PvX situations.
I honestly, I didn't know that the item would, like the loot container would become public. We just knew that you won the loot roll, but suddenly everyone in the raid could loot it. What the hell's going on? So we didn't know that. That actually wasn't, like, I didn't realize that was the intended mechanic.
Well,
Knowing that now is very interesting.
Yeah, think about this scenario. You are in a group, you're in a room, and you have a mini boss in front of you, and you're killing the mini boss, and you have another group that's kind of watching you do that. And as the mini boss dies, you see the visual effects indicator that this big golden, stream is coming off the body. Immediately, the contending group says, "Oh shit, there's a item drop that's of legendary quality on this thing. Quick, everybody, kill them all so they can't grab the container, and we will try to preserve this space until the win rights lapse and it becomes public." Like, in my opinion, that to me
That's
is
spicy
the
AF.
ultimate kind of paradigm of opportunity
That
eliciting
is spicy,
PvE
baby.
encounter. And that also then stimulates the potential for political engagement, revenge, like whatever, all the things that go
Vulture Ninja Baiters incoming.
driven emergent, interaction. Will it suck if you die and you lose access to it? Yes. I mean, that's the bite of
It's
failure.
PvX. So that's a combination of PvP and PvE.
And you then just
Did
automatically
I say both
getting
of
the
them?
item in your inventory. Or do we
That is a
preserve
very
this
long
idea
and
of kind
in-depth
of,
question.
PvX interaction?
Yeah, and I see a lot of people, some people saying W, some people saying bad mechanic. Let me give you a story that I have from my history in EVE, right? We lost.
No, yes and no.
Structures in EVE Online. The
You can
base
choose not to
they have
flag
core
to be
inside. This is where
PvP,
a shitload of
but somebody can still kill you.
And when
But
that
they go
structure dies,
corrupt, and there's an
we
extreme
got
cost to it.
double
It is a
crossed
very
by that was going to be there.
involved
When we
question.
destroyed that structure that was going to either
I would
protect us
encourage
or
a
help us
YouTube
to
short
make sure we extract
or a
the
YouTube
when they
search
got-
on
When we
that.
got double crossed, they started fighting all of us off.
Always on
so they
PvP,
could
but you
take
don't
the
have to
core for
engage. It's
themselves,
just
'cause it's worth
consequences.
even
Exactly.
more. Yes,
There you
it's
go.
worth a lot of money in game. At the last moment, Kronos actually flew in and grabbed the core and escaped before they could get him. It was hilarious, and it's a moment that I will never forget in the game because that was the moment where it's like, oh my god, everyone's fighting. There's hundreds of players here locked in battle, and he goes, "Whoa," and just flies off, and it was hilarious. So, like, even though it may suck when these types of things don't go your way, it is a story in a social sandbox game that stays with you forever. And
Yep.
that is the important part. That day we won, there were other days where we lost. And I don't forget those because the game didn't generate those moments. We did. And that's a story that...
Yeah, I've
players
never
get
been
to
a
know.
PvP person, but I think they have the right flavor in this game for me to enjoy it.
And I'll give you another example. I was playing.
And for the hardcore PvP people, what he was talking about earlier with the nodes that are combat, what is it? They're military nodes, where you basically, it's you and maybe a certain set of surrogates fight for domination and mayorship of the node. Like, there is a space for the hardcore PvP people. There's also a space for the people that don't really want to be bothered with it, but can do, can deal with it.
I don't know if you ever played Arcade, but I was playing in Arcade, and I told you about how we would own all the kind of bosses for the first 6 months of the server. But eventually, it got to a tipping scale where both factions were fighting us because we had just completed the Kraken raid. And the Kraken, this was like our 76th straight Kraken that we had done. It spawned once every like 3 days or something.
Oh, Jesus.
And I know. And when you do that, you can loot obviously the corpse, and you got the reward. But it would also spawn these crates of tentacles that would live in the water. And those crates, you had
This
to like
needs
grab
to
them, put them
end
on your
soon.
back,
I
or
do
put them in
have
the
to
merchant
wake
ship,
up
or
in the
put them in a
morning.
tractor or whatever. And then you could take them and turn them in, and they would give each person like 100 some odd gold. Well, in order to do that, you had to successfully make it back to the location. And you had to control the area in which it was kind of like this lingering zone of a battlefield where, I kid you not, we had all these frigates and we just completed the Kraken. And there was like 300 of us, and there was like 600 of our opponents. And this battle was over probably like 5 square kilometers or 10 square kilometers in sea. And it was just almost 20 hours straight of PvP, constantly picking up and dropping these tentacles to try to grab them to take them back. I went to bed for 2 hours in the middle of that fight and came back
Damn.
and was back on my ship, captaining the ship, trying to help the fight. But like, that experience cannot be curated.
No.
It is impossible to design as
Yep.
compelling of an interaction between players as
Yep.
emergent as the need to control the battlefield. And like
Yeah.
it or not, a PVX game everywhere is a battlefield. Even if you're killing
That's
that
why.
boss,
Here's your
even if
answer.
you're killing that mini boss, you're controlling a room in a dungeon, or you're, whatever you're doing, there is someone else who looks at that opportunity, who looks at that scarcity of resource, who looks at that political engagement, and they say, I woke up this morning choosing violence. And that's
I
an okay
chose
thing to do,
violence.
right? We want to preserve that type of call to action. And in my opinion, this specific mechanic, albeit, on the smaller scale, is lending towards that need to not just accomplish the thing, but to control the
Yep.
battlefield for a limited period
Yep.
of time afterwards to ensure you reap the reward. Now, does that mean that we're not going to potentially change things? No, of course. Like,
This is
we
a
take
long
into
answer
account
because it's
player
important.
feedback, we take into account data. How often is it happening that the party who has the looting rights doesn't get the reward? Like, if it doesn't strike the balance we're looking for, and it feels like, the players aren't engaging it with the way that we want them to, that's the whole purpose of alpha and beta, is that we get to inspect these design decisions and we get to adjust them appropriately to ensure that the intended consequence, the intended design, is being manifest.
I'm really
Oh
glad
God,
you
zombies!
that,
Hello.
because Flashpoint PvP and like zone-based PvP is something I always really enjoyed. Eve kind of pushes that with structure.
Yeah, we're getting rid of the early 2000
You can't just kill them
participation
all at once.
trophies.
These are player-based buildings, right? What you have to do is you have to place it, and then there's an online.
That's
phase.
right,
There's an
Holgar.
anchoring phase that creates a let's hold down this location. Then it comes out of that, and there's a shield phase. People can break the shield, and it sets off a timer. Then there's an armor phase. Then there's a structure phase. And the structure phase at that point is, if you don't save it now, it's dead. It's over, right? So you have to save it, and then it can repair itself back up, and it's a big deal. So like these types of things create contests at those moments where it matters, where things can be lost permanently. And
It
I
has
love
to
it.
matter.
I think
Gameplay has to matter.
I think the thing
Bottom
that I
line.
see the most in this right now is the caravan system. Having this kind of mobile PvP zone around the map with risk in and of itself with that. How do you see that evolving out to be something that is either more compelling or is, do you think you guys want to expand on that? Do you want to have other types of things like that in the world beyond just node-based stuff? Anything with like guild
We're
structures,
done with
anything-
whiskeys for the
anything else
night.
that does that.
Yeah. Obviously our war structures do that. Our node to node reputation systems can allow for those types of things to occur. The node war system spawns PvP events that are high stakes rewards for the participants. I think the caravan structure is.
I got to play last weekend for the first time. November 8th, phase 1 access. Looking forward to this weekend.
Also be a bit of a cat and mouse game.
It's going to be a little less intense for me this weekend on gameplay because I have a lot of stuff going on next week, so that I need to prepare for.
The route that's being chosen, that'll extend obviously out into the naval components as well when it comes to merchant ships and the routes that are possible and engaging with harbor systems.
Wow, you worked harder than me. I got to level 8.6 on my Ranger there,
players can
but
obviously
I messed around a lot.
engage in the theft.
Oh, you
and
work
or,
Friday, Saturday? Terrible.
conflict that arises around the movement of goods and resources through the world. They're not just movement of good and resources, they're also intended to provide necessary, like node based resources, which don't necessarily exist in the hands of players, but are the accrued effect of taxation and or buy orders and mayoral
I will
commissions
have no
that
taxation
then can
without
be used to
representation,
build up
Stephen.
certain buildings and services and utilize certain policies within the node structures. So even if you're not necessarily taking something from other players,
I don't know if I
you
like the new
are
chat design that I
preventing
have
or
right now.
blocking certain node relationships
Throws tea in the harbor,
accruing the
absolutely.
benefit of progression, which is a necessary tactic in how
Let me try and
certain
change
nodes
something here
interface
real
with
quick
the
on the
master
fly. I'm sure
system,
it won't blow up in my
because
face
nodes
at
can
all.
block other nodes from progression should they succeed in those endeavors. So yeah.
No, that's good. I think that's a really good choice, man. Like, all this is, it's funny because a lot of these systems, it's very clear that you guys have thought them through very much. It's very clear that you are a player of these types of video games. And I think that was one of the things a lot of people are afraid of, man. Like, I really do. I think a lot of times people see usually game directors or CEOs or anything this kind of stuff as being very disconnected from the gaming world, not understanding how these games are played, not being a player of these, not understanding what's compelling about these types of systems. And they usually approach it from a, how am I selling a product, not how am I making a video game.
Let me get
know?
this
and
fixed
again,
here
I
real
think,
quick.
yeah, absolutely, you're 100% right. And the great thing about this kind of transparency,
One of the ship, one of the crew.
you know, we started back at the end of 2016 in developing Ashes. You know, back when we only had like 10 people on the team, and you know,
Oh yeah,
I was
there we
going
go.
through and writing up all of these kind of designs that are predicated across the
No,
games that, you know, I personally have experienced and that I felt would mesh well in creating this kind of sand park
nope.
environment that players have an opportunity to,
Sorry,
you know,
I'm changing the
engage
way
with.
chat's gonna look. Give me
And
a
then
second.
as the team grows and we flesh out these ideas and these designs, you know, we make sure that we're keeping that central vision. And this harkens back to your original question: what is my role, you know, on the project? I am a rudder. I am essentially the person who ensures that where all designs and ideas kind of come up and trickle up through, you know, this
Oh hell
idea
no.
of a single point of understanding what is the intended gameplay experience and design that needs to maintain cohesion. And that's
No,
really
we
the
don't want
strength, I
that.
think, of our
That's
organization,
dull.
of our project, is that you can go through the wiki, you can click on the references back to the videos in 2017 and 18 where I'm talking about these same topics. And
Yep.
now you're seeing those designs implemented within the game and playing them
He's been
and
on
getting
track for
feedback on
sure.
them.
Let's go to
You know,
WoW
we
box.
don't
See
change
what
our
that looks like.
identity year after year
Nope.
like a lot of projects do,
Nope. We're gonna keep
where
it the
they
way it
don't have
is.
that
Piss on
strong
it.
of a rudder. And that's not any, you know, I'm not trying to cast any shadows on any other team or any other project or whatever. I think that's fine. There's a lot of very successful projects that do change their identity, you know, answer the call of the market. But I think we've embraced this idea that our
Ooh, try
prospect isn't
that.
going to be for everyone,
Yep.
and that is okay.
Let's
It is
try that.
speaks to the integrity of the design intent when you know who your audience is and you know who your core group of players are going to be, and you build for that. And the wider you go, the more diluted that becomes and the more opportunity you have to please no one. And that's obviously not what we're trying to accomplish.
Nope,
I'm
they're
really
avoiding
happy to hear
that.
that. I think one of the biggest things that I said at the beginning of this was there's many companies that'll be like, it's pissing players off. Maybe we should change everything to fit that. And
Yeah, that's
even
some
things
corporate
like banning
ass.
players, like, oh, maybe we shouldn't ban those players. They're the top guild, and if we ban them, then it might piss off lots of people and they won't play
Get
the game.
over
It's
it.
like, no, they're being toxic or they're exploiting or things like that. People like that need to be banned. And if you don't
Yeah.
do that, then it ends up turning into a failure point for the rest of the community, and you
Exactly.
start losing people out of the community. I think that's the thing that's the scariest option. It's the same thing with this, is if you guys have a core vision for the game, you want the game
Let
to
me
be
throw
like
a
this,
chat
there's
message
number of
out and see
players
if
that
this
resonate with this,
updated.
and then you fold on that, no one's going to be happy at that point, you know?
Yep.
Let's get another PvP toggle, please.
Retail WoW in a
Oh
nutshell.
yeah, let's talk about naval
Or
warfare.
nutshell.
You know, we're a bunch of pirates. You know, it's the actual Pirates Guild. We'd like to know about naval warfare.
Yeah, I think I probably handle this one in 2 minutes.
All right.
You know, we
Yeah,
have a lot
2
of
minutes.
systems that are intended for naval gameplay. Right now in Alpha 2, You can experience some limited functionality with regards to kind of
Oh, it didn't
vehicles and
update.
ships on the water. That's through our caravan raft system. That is a very simple implementation of the rudimentary kind of vehicle mechanics that we want to demonstrate. However, long-term goal is that our naval system incorporates a lot of different ship designs that have variable component design to them as well. So you can attach certain type of siege weaponry on the ships against other ships. You can attach certain types of shit. I
Shit.
forgot what they're called.
Certain
Utility
types of
items.
shit. You heard it here first.
Certain
folks.
types of shit. Yes.
No, utility items on the
Locked
ship
in.
to kind of
Very
address
scientific.
different situations. These are mainly allowed through our harbor system. You get recipes for ships, you construct the ships, and then the important thing is that if your ship gets destroyed, you're respawning at a harbor. So there are definitive victory points that exist out within the ocean. And that is something that we want to make sure, players have to be kind of careful about their ships, because losing a ship is something that is very, very important, very costly, has a lot of
Capital resource,
requirements
yeah.
in sync, and it sets your raid or your group back to the start.
All right, let's
which
try
makes
this
the
again.
ocean engagements kind of definitive.
I'm just going to be real with you. I am going to ransom so many ships. Oh,
There you go. There you
I
go.
mean, we got a whole fleet here, and you got one guy. Just pay us for passage, and we might let you pass, or you die.
We might.
Choice.
I love it. Love it. There's another important
It's still not
thing,
updating. God damn it.
with naval that was introduced a few years ago, and that was open seas mechanic, which is essentially everyone in the open seas is flagged.
How does the server handle that at that point? Do you guys just have to get even more mesh servers out there to be able to handle all the different areas of sea?
No, we have a solution that is still being tested, and bugs are getting kind of worked out in it. It's down in under our dev branch, but it's a dynamic server meshing. So depending on how player densities move throughout the world, those server regions will condense or expand to accommodate the densities. So our servers kind of follow the player density around the world. That's how we kind of get around, moving players through the open world.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I like that. Social systems aren't really in yet. You've got alpha phase 1, dude. Nah. Like that stuff is all slated, I believe, for phase 3 is what it was
Yes,
showing
that's
me.
right. Yeah, and we did put out a roadmap so that, obviously our testers can get cognizance of where we intend to have certain things land. Of course, that intention is subject to change based off of how we need to react
There we
to
go.
more
That's
emergent and pressing bugs and issues that come up in the previous phases. But you can check that roadmap out, and it does have.
I'm sure that I'm the only one who cares about
different
what
systems
chat looks
listed.
like.
So
There we
here's a
go.
really interesting one. It's very specific. There's a lot of people that are very, very interested in fishing, and I know this as well. There's people that will just get wildly into fishing. How
Yep.
deep do you guys want to take the fishing system?
All the way
Because
deep.
I know, like, there are things like certain weather events, certain times of day, certain areas of the map. Like, what are all these types of components that you're interested in adding to fishing? Because I love that
Yeah.
stuff too.
Absolutely. I mean, fishing is definitely a treasured favorite amongst a lot of MMO gamers.
Well, it
Mhm.
doesn't have fishing. It's not an MMO. Let's be honest.
Yep.
That's right. I'm a big fan of fishing. Our goal with fishing is twofold. We kind of want to have one side of fishing be, location based freshwater fishing that is a bit more AFK related, having the necessary bait, being able to kind of pick locations and resource nodes that exist around the world for different types of fish. And then we want to kind of have a more sports fishing, interactive gameplay layer that's a part of the fishing. And we might extend some of that gameplay layer to the freshwater fishing, but this is really something that's intended to be out in the open seas, out in the open water. These are massive fish that will relate to our
Oh, yeah,
crate
this is gonna
system
be
and how we
amazing.
move crates in caravans and in merchant ships.
The game within the
So
game.
we intend to have certain type of fishing ship designs that are better at finding those spots throughout the open seas, and where players
need
will have limited
magic
resources to
sonar,
engage
Steven.
with those. They'll have like chum mechanics that they need to leverage. They'll have,
I agree with that. I
different
think that's a
types
good
of
take,
components that
Zombies.
can be equipped on the ship that benefit that type of fish finding. And my idea here is that is that we have a really compelling loop for what fishing is. And I know the econ team is very aligned with that perspective as well.
Are you telling me I can go out and steal a man's crab pots and get marked
Yep.
for PvP? Is that what I'm?
Yep. Low reward,
To
high
be
reward.
clear,
It
the
indeed.
open seas, and that's anywhere that's not on land, right? This is basically like not freshwater, not on continent, but as you go out into the open seas, the ocean, this is a open PvP ground, right? So
It's lawless. Yeah.
So
Absolutely
everybody's
lawless.
PvP. There's no
I'm
corruption.
gonna love that.
mechanics
The desert's
that
gonna be
occur
amazing
in
for
the open
the
seas.
lawlessness.
That's an opt-in place, a zone. It's kind of similar to like Zero Sec, as you said, that also has high-end resources available.
Yeah, it's null-sec gameplay. So if you're an EVE player, any of the lawless zones are basically null-sec. It is not full loot PvP in those areas, though. So it's not full loot, but you kill people and you get materials. Right.
Correct. Yep.
We actually want to go and take one of those areas of the map when it becomes available. I think that comes out December 20th. So phase 2 is we're going to be going out and trying to get into, what is the top left zone called? The one with the islands out there?
The Coral Seas?
Or
the
one,
Turquoise Sea. Sorry, Turquoise Sea.
I think it's the one that's just opening up, the next node, because it's already there, and we went over there, and it's got like lawless zone already on it. What's the name of this place?
Yeah.
It's the one that has Wind and Sea as the kind of node name for it.
I mean, the Turquoise Sea is what's up in the top left area.
Tropics. Tropics?
The
Vanguard
tropics. That's the
Tropics?
biome.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the biome name. It's the Vanguard Tropics.
Yep.
The Vanguard is the name of the continent. The tropics is the biome.
The tropics.
And then the
why?
zone
When we were all having a brain fart.
Oh, okay. That makes sense. Yeah, no, I don't know how expansive those areas get. One of the things I was talking to people in the game, you've got 55 kilometers of space right now, square kilometers, right? And what is the intended size of the overall game? Because we know it's going to go from 5 total nodes right now up to 85 plus 15 more for fortresses. Is what I've been hearing.
Yeah. I believe our total size is 1,200 square kilometers overall. I think that was where we last left it.
My
That's
freaking
probably
God.
about
Hold on.
800 square
Hold on.
kilometers of
Wait.
playable space on land.
Wait a minute. 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 21 size, 21x what we have available of land space is coming your way. Good luck. 21x. It took me 3 hours of poking and prodding, and I know I got called slow by my boy. And it's probably true. But like 21x. Oh my God. You're talking an insane amount of time to travel the globe.
Roughly. But obviously it's a big world. Even in the Riverlands right now, it's a big world. And this is partly in contribution to what we talked about earlier with regards to Zergs and like the ability to fast travel. The movement of resources through this world is a very important component of how the world develops. And in order for that to matter, you have to have a lot of playable space. Now, one thing to note is our target goal is 8 to 10,000 concurrent users per realm. That's a lot of space, even for 8 to 10,000 concurrent users. However, it is my expectation that we could go higher than that based off of how our dynamic server gridding works. So depending on how that feels,
God, I hope so. Let the technology happen here, because if you have that 1,200 square kilometers with a intensive player base and it can handle it and it can answer the questions I asked for before on like massive amounts of people flooding to an event, it is the MMO at that point.
We might be able to go above the 8 to 10,000 value per realm. We're just going to have to see how that goes.
Yeah, and to be clear, just so you guys understand, you've got EVE Online usually averages between 18,000 and 28,000 total active concurrent players at the same time. So when you're talking about 10,000 concurrent players, that's a hell of a lot of players. That's not a small amount. That's very, very, very big. Yeah, please no sharding. There was no intention, as far as I knew, to shard any people out from like one area to another area and make them, not in the same phase. Do you want to talk a little bit more about that? That's all from the meshing.
I hate that shit.
Yeah, we don't use
layers. None of that. No.
We don't use layers or phasing. What we do is we have glorious.
Couldn't stand that in Guild Wars.
Anton, Adam, Zach, and Alex and Ish. They're they're phenomenal network engineers. And what we have built is obviously the server meshing technology, where we've rewritten kind of the back end for Unreal in order to serve our needs from a concurrent user population perspective as well as player density.
They
And we
got
also
in there
have
and
a
tore
tech
that
that's
shit
called
open.
dynamic server meshing, which is still going through bug testing and isn't yet fully implemented in phase one. However, we are using
What we have
gridding
now is the
technology.
size of
And
New
what
World, or
happens is as
2/3 the
player
size of the
densities go
Eastern
up,
Kingdom in WoW.
those grids of
It's
authority
insane.
will
It's
contract or
crazy.
expand, and new workers,
When we see population flow, he'll know how big they can push
grid
this.
to accommodate additional spaces as required. These are kind of pre-spooled server workers. And then obviously we have the standard.
Let's see how
kind of,
microscopic and how many
mitigation.
the density of server
As
workers they
density
can
goes
get.
higher in certain spaces, we start bringing in call distances. We start limiting, actors
It
that
is
replicate.
getting early.
How many of them can replicate at once? Like there are things that we use as server frame rate starts to decline, and those densities get up in the hundreds and hundreds of players within a particular space. So all those things combined give us great confidence that we.
Oh, the sea and the Underrealm, exactly.
That's awesome. So I've got 2 questions left for you.
Too much.
We're at the end
It's
of it.
too
Of
much,
all the
man.
systems that are coming up, what is the one that you specifically are most interested in? The one you are excited about. Not excited about for the players, excited for you.
I think probably Node and Castle Sieges. I think
Okay.
those are
That would have
a
probably
level
been
of
my
kind
guess,
of,
yeah.
gameplay loops that are more architected towards an end game experience that players can repeat and that have ramifications and rewards that
Yep,
are
it's the
compelling and keep
repeatability.
players invested. I think we have some plans to stand up some bare siege mechanics for nodes and eventually castles within phase 2 that we'll be testing. And I'm excited to see players interact with that.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, I'm really excited to that. I'm interested in seeing the castle system, like how those nodes, the castle nodes, are going to work. I was also really interested in like how the underground of the world works too, because I know there's like a whole underground
There you
region, and I was reading the wiki and it said that there might be nodes down there, and I was like, oh man, living underground would be kind of cool. You just pop up out of the ground.
The
Like,
Underrealm, yes.
Oh, the node
places
wars
where
is
the
going to be
game
next
was
level for sure.
And the way that it got formed,
We need
they
more
actually
nodes,
stole
for
stars
sure.
in these PvP, PvE events.
I hope
that
they
happened
open
around
up
the
more
universe.
nodes pretty
We
soon.
pushed them to our faction, and then there was a gigantic.
I gotta go look at the
accelerated
roadmap
event where
again.
All of them were whisked away into like a pocket dimension area, a wormhole space, and it formed our own galaxy cluster up there, and we could leave that area through wormholes to go back to the world. And that underground place very much so mimics that kind of feeling to me, where if we lived underground, we could just pop up and be like PvP, and then like disappear back under the ground, and like that's very much wormhole to me. So I'm
Yep.
interested in that kind of stuff later on. That's the one I'm most excited for.
The Underrealm is definitely going to be a lot of fun. We had some semblance of the Underrealm in Alpha 1. We're waiting for some additional features on the dynamic server gridding in order to stack regional authority for these server workers on top of each
Okay,
other.
three-dimensionally.
So for the Underrealms to not share with the overground area. And I agree with you. Like, obviously, the purpose of those spaces is to provide alternate routes that might be dangerous in different ways, but don't have the same types of choke points that the overground routes have for things like trade and encounter design. I think that it's a very compelling space for sure.
Yeah, I'm super into that. And I
Boat
think the
show,
last one the
baby.
community really wants to know is, what about the ferret wish? For those who don't know, I was teleported to the top of a tower, and I had to answer a riddle, and I answered that riddle correctly, and I was given the chance to do a wish, and I said, I want ferrets in the video game, and the wish was granted.
I think that ferrets are
Yeah, I know.
definitely
We're only
a
3
very
weeks
cool
in.
idea, and we'll just have to wait a little bit and see.
I
want to
get summoned to the top of the tower.
Ferrets in the video game.
I definitely want to be summoned.
Well, it's been nice having you on, man, and like I'm super down with this.
The 6 week, yeah, isn't that the pacing? The 6 week major update.
Say that for me.
Ooh.
And, I'm having a blast.
Are you sure?
I'm clocking like 50 hours now in the last 9 days.
3. Next is 4, right?
I'm excited December 20th, so we can play it even more. So thank you.
We're hitting weekend 3.
Thank you for having me. I enjoyed it. I enjoy watching you play. Like I
Great
said,
conversation. Thank you, Forex, for pushing me this way.
To hear you speak both from a developer's perspective and helping to kind of navigate knowledge of what a true alpha looks like.
Yeah, it's excellent.
We
Excellent.
have definitely overcome our hurdles of of doubt over time when it comes to
Yeah, and with me
realizing
pausing, you
this
know, it
grand
takes
vision
forever.
for an
We're
MMORPG
at
like
3 hours
Ashes.
right now on the
And,
stream.
having someone like yourself that is just capable of answering questions from a very personable and relatable perspective is a huge help for us to better communicate what goes into making a game of this
No,
size, what
I
goes into
I never
creating
had a
the
negative
level of
view
systems
of
complexity
Thor at
that
all,
we're
but I have
trying
a
to
very
achieve with
positive one right
Ashes.
now. I like
So
him.
huge
I like him.
props to you and to your community of goblins and
The
fellow
Batman
pirates
of
who are very
AOC.
much welcome in the Ashes community. We appreciate you guys very much and love having you as a part of this experience.
Well, thank you very much. And,
The hero we need and
truthfully, I
don't
think the biggest
deserve.
thing is, like we were talking about earlier, there are so many people that have seen alphas that don't exist.
Oh, thank you for the follow,
These types of
Taylor
alphas where it's
Spy.
3 days of an alpha. It's 5 days of a beta. And it's just like, that's not what these are. And I think the worst part about it is you get this sort of education that is instilled in people. It kind of poisons the world.
Ashes is going to re-educate
Right.
people about the
They don't
development
know
process.
what a real alpha is, and then they
The
get
people
something
that are
like
open to
this,
education,
looks
some
bad.
people are
It's like,
dense.
yeah, it's an alpha, and they go, so it comes out next week, right? And it's like, no. It's like
No.
re-educating people about what this term is supposed to mean, and that's
Absolutely.
that's such a wild thing to see of how far that's gone because AAA has abused that. They've abused the term,
They have.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
this is good, man. And I think you guys are doing the right thing. I can't wait to keep playing this as it goes forward. And the biggest thing is go put in bug reports, dudes.
That's right, bro.
Do that.
I didn't do any bug reports
I
until
put-
Sunday,
I put in like
but
100
I got after it. I had a lot of them.
Well, it was lovely having you on, and I'll see you around, man.
Right. Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Right on, right on, right on. That was so good. Definitely worth our time. Very happy. I don't know if I can get his logo back on there. But anyway, that was so badass. What a great interview. Let me do. We'll go right here for a second as I do our sign off. No, let's go right there, right? There we go. You can watch me play poorly. You know that I didn't realize, so I have an RTX 3050 in this machine, which is just what I could have at the time. I played on high settings. I was in the desert here at high settings. It wasn't until later in the game, at the last, like we had an hour and a half left, that I realized I could actually play on Ultra and saw what a difference that was. And I don't think YouTube is going to allow you to feel as impressed as I was due to their own quality. Yeah, unoptimized too. It was life-changing. And here's where I would tell anybody to go look at the difference is at the Ember Springs. Because when you see that animation, oh man, maybe I can find one. When you see that animation difference, we'll do it right here. Yep, so I died, so I should be going to the Ember Spring, right? It looks pretty damn good here, right? When you see the Ember Spring on Ultra, even on this 3050, holy shnikes Batman. It is damn good. We're going to hang out for that, and then I'm going to sign off and say goodnight, and thank you for all the follows and chat. Look at that. Look at the crystals in that Ember Spring. Look at the rainbow. It is crazy good. Crazy good. And like you just said, unoptimized. I appreciate everybody. I do have school tomorrow. All the good things tomorrow. A lot to do tomorrow. A lot. But I value the time with this community so much. You have no idea. Wow, we're going to get rid of that chat. That looks like, yeah, I'm going to have to change that back. Sorry, ADD. Peace, homie. Yeah, no, I love it. I'm going to try to be back in tomorrow night and do something worthy. Go in town and find the tree. Yeah, you're right. I do need to go find the tree because those are beautiful. We will try to do something tomorrow night. I can't promise it. If not, I'll see you guys Friday in game, and peace.